The U.S. Supreme Court may revive a doctrine that would basically destroy all federal agencies. Yep, not making this up. It's called the non-delegation doctrine. It's been around for a long time. It's never actually been law in the United States. The way things work right now is Congress says, okay, we've got a problem. Let's say, acid rain. Well, actually, that's not the best example. We got a problem. People are dying from cancers that are caused by tailpipe exhaust. And, we're Congress. We're not scientists. We don't know what to do about this. We're not engineers. We don't know how to fix this. We just know that the stuff coming out of the tailpipes, all that soot and all the particulate matter and the benzene and all these, it's causing asthma and it's killing people with cancer. And we have to do something about this. So they create an agency, in this case, the Environmental Protection Agency, or they task an agency, an existing agency, with the job of dealing with this problem of the tailpipe emissions causing cancer and asthma. And they say, you guys, hire a bunch of scientists, figure out what's going on, figure out the best solution, hire some engineers, and tell the car companies how they have to change. And by the way, this is how we got catalytic converters and how the smog vanished in Los Angeles. I've mentioned before I'm a pilot, and back in the 70s, I got my pilot's license in 71, I think, or 72. And must have been about 74 because our daughter was 2 years old at the time. Louise and I flew from Lansing, Michigan out to Los Angeles in this little, Cherokee Arrow, Tango 41752. And had, wild adventures along the way, had a gas line break, had an oil leak. I mean, it was an old airplane. But when we came into Los Angeles, as we're approaching Los Angeles, it was like there was this giant yellow dome over the city that you couldn't really see through. I mean, you could vaguely, but it was, all the way on and that's gone. When you fly into Los Angeles now, you don't see that giant yellow dome. Well, that's because the EPA stepped up and said, catalytic converters are necessary to get all this ozone and all this other crud out of the air. Under the non-delegation doctrine that is going to be before the Supreme Court shortly, and this is based on a lawsuit from the Consumers Research, which is a right-wing group. And but under the non-delegation doctrine, what would have to happen is that Congress itself would hire a bunch of scientists. The House of Representatives would hire a group of scientists to inform them of the problem, and then they would hire engineers to tell them how to solve the problem, and then Democrats and Republicans would have to get together and write legislation that says, okay, you must have a catalytic converter in the cars, you must have a certain cleanliness of the fuels, and particularly the diesel, and here are all the standards and all this stuff, comporting with the best science. Well, that's crazy. I mean, Congress will never do that. Congress doesn't have the resources to do it. It doesn't have the staff to do it. It doesn't have the expertise to do it. And it doesn't have the time to do it. And even if it had all of those things, odds are, political BS would get in the way and things wouldn't get done. Which is exactly the goal of these people funding this lawsuit. Behind this lawsuit, I'm pretty sure you'll probably find fossil fuel billionaires who don't want to be regulated. They want to have, their poison in the air because it makes them money. So this is coming. And this is on top of blowing up the Chevron deference. The Chevron deference said basically that the courts will defer to the judgment of the scientists in these individual agencies, like EPA. Well, the courts don't have to defer to them anymore. They can take down an agency or a rule anytime they want. But this goes beyond that. This basically says the EPA can no longer make rules. Only Congress can make rules. And it will destroy the administrative state. It would end the CFPB, it would end the EPA, it would end the Labor Department. Basically, every department of government that protects us, that protects you and me from the predation of billionaires and giant corporations gets shut down. And it looks like the right-wingers on the court are very enthusiastic about this. Meanwhile, over at Fox so-called News, you recall 2 days ago, I believe it was, Rupert Murdoch showed up unexpectedly. I mean, maybe expected by Trump, but not by the media. Showed up at the White House for a meeting with Donald Trump, and everybody was scratching their head. Why is Rupert Murdoch here? You know, what does he want from Trump, or what does Trump want from him? Now, Trump had been criticizing Fox News recently. I have a suspicion that that's all gone away, because what Murdoch apparently gave Trump was a TV show for his daughter-in-law. Lara Trump, Eric's wife, is now going to be the host of My View with Lara Trump, which is going to play every Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern on Fox so-called News. The network is describing the show as focused on the return of common sense to all corners of American life. This is what Trump is calling common sense, is the new catchphrase on the right. It's just common sense that you don't want to, have diversity, equity, and inclusion. You don't want to be hiring, the people of color or women or queer people. It's just common sense that you want to go back to apartheid in the United States. It's just common sense that, women should be in the bedroom and the kitchen and not in the workplace, et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, both the National Security Agency and the National Atmospheric, the NASA, the space agency, National Aeronautics and Space Agency, both of them appear to have just gone nuts in the last 48 hours. The National Cryptological Museum, which is run by the National Security Agency, the NSA, this is a federal museum of spies and spydom. As a result of Trump's order to scrub DEI from all federal programs, taped. This is a quote from this quoting from an article. I'm sorry, I don't have actually. For some reason, the publication name did not print, but it's it's one of our. Well, it's from Politico actually. Taped sheets of brown paper over plaques in its Hall of Honor devoted to women and people of color. So they've got all these little pictures and plaques and things, about spies who did incredibly cool stuff. And some of them are black and some of them are female, and they put brown paper over all the black and female spies and stories about black and female spies. Now, this apparently only lasted a couple days before the outrage caused them to go, well, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. And then over at NASA personnel were told to drop everything, to scrub public sites of mentions of DE404media.co. They had to remove any website that mentions diversity in the context of DEIA, that mentions indigenous people, oh my God, and that mentions anything specifically targeting women, such as women in leadership at NASA. Along with equity, inclusion, accessibility, MSI, minority serving institution, EEJ, EJ, environmental justice, and underrepresented groups and people. So let's just make America white again. I mean, we've known all along, we've known this for a decade, right? We've known that this is Donald Trump's agenda. No more black people in power, no more black people in positions of authority, purge the federal government of black people who have any authority at all. It's fine if you got a bunch of black people in the Army serving as cannon fodder, but a black guy as Secretary of Defense, that ain't going to happen. We'll put an alcoholic white guy in there instead. It's really remarkable how far they've gotten and how much approval that they have. I mean, the story this morning over on Fox News was how Trump's approval ratings are up with Republicans right now. In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com. Book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Dopamine Nation, Finding Balance in the Age of Indulgence by Anna Lemke, MD. This is from the introduction. This book is about pleasure. It's also about pain. Most important, it's about the relationship between pleasure and pain and how understanding that relationship has become essential to a life well lived. Why? Because we transformed the world from a place of scarcity to a place of overwhelming abundance. Drugs, food, news, gambling, shopping, gaming, texting, sexting, Facebooking, Instagramming, YouTubing, tweeting. The increased numbers, variety, and potency of highly rewarding stimuli is absolutely staggering. The smartphone is the modern-day hypodermic needle, delivering digital dopamine 24/7 to a wired generation. If you haven't met your drug of choice yet, it's coming soon to a website near you. Scientists rely on dopamine as a kind of universal currency for measuring the addictive potential of any experience. The more dopamine in the brain's reward pathway, the more addictive the experience. In addition to the discovery of dopamine, one of the most remarkable neuroscientific findings in the past century is that the brain processes pain and pleasure in the same place. Further, pleasure and pain work like the opposite sides of a balance. We've all experienced that moment of craving a second piece of chocolate or wanting a good book, movie, or video game to last forever. That moment of wanting is the brain's pleasure balance tipped to the side of pain. This book aims to unpack the neuroscience of reward and, in doing so, enable us to find a better, healthier balance between pleasure and pain. But neuroscience isn't enough. We also need the lived experience of human beings. Who better to teach us how to overcome compulsive overconsumption than those most vulnerable to it, people with addictions? This book is based on true stories of my patients falling prey to addiction and finding their way out again. They've given me permission to tell their stories so that you might benefit from their wisdom, as I have. You may find some of these stories shocking, but to me they're just extreme versions of what we're all capable of. As philosopher and theologian Kent Dunnington wrote, quote, "Persons with severe addictions are among those contemporary prophets that we ignore to our own demise, for they show us who we truly are," end quote. Whether it's sugar or shopping, voyeuring or vaping, social media posts or the Washington Post, we all engage in behaviors we wish we didn't, to an extent we regret. This book offers practical solutions for how to manage compulsive overconsumption in a world where consumption has become the all-encompassing motive of our lives. In essence, the secret to finding balance is combining the science of desire with the wisdom of recovery. Then we jump to the conclusion chapter. We all desire a respite from the world, a break from the impossible standards we often set for ourselves and others. It's natural that we would want to seek a reprieve from our own relentless ruminations. Why did I do that? Why can't I do this? Look at what they did to me. How could I have done that to them? So we're drawn to any of the pleasurable forms of escape that are now available to us. Trendy cocktails, the echo chamber of social media, binge-watching reality shows, an evening of internet porn, potato chips and fast food, immersive video games, second-rate vampire novels. The list really is endless. Addictive drugs and behaviors provide that respite but add to our problems in the long run. What if, instead of seeking oblivion by escaping from the world, we turn toward it? What if, instead of leaving the world behind, we immerse ourselves in it? Mohammed, you'll remember, was my patient who tried various forms of self-binding to limit his cannabis consumption, only to find himself right back where he started, progressing from moderation to excessive consumption to addiction at an ever faster cadence. He went hiking at Point Reyes, a nature trail just north of San Francisco, in hopes of finding refuge in an activity that had previously given him pleasure, as he once again tried to get control of his cannabis consumption. But every turn in the bend brought fresh memories of smoking weed. Hiking trips in the past had almost always occurred in a state of semi-intoxication. And so instead of being an escape, the hike turned into an agony of craving and a painful reminder of loss. He despaired of ever being able to wrestle his cannabis problem into submission. Then he had his aha moment. At one particular vista point where he had explicit memories of smoking a joint with friends, he brought the camera up to his eye and pointed it to a nearby plant. He saw a bug on a leaf and focused the camera further, zooming in on the beetle's bright red carapace, striated antennae, and ferociously hairy legs. He was mesmerized. His attention was snared by the creature in his crosshairs. He took a series of pictures, then changed his angle and took more. For the rest of the hiking trip, he stopped to take extremely close-up pictures of beetles. As soon as he did so, his cravings for cannabis decreased. I had to force myself to be very still, he told me at one of our sessions in 2017. I had to achieve a perfect stillness to take a good in-focus picture. That process grounded me, literally, and centered me. I discovered a strange, surreal, and compelling world at the end of my camera that rivaled the world I escaped to with drugs. But this was better, because no drugs were needed. Many months later, I realized Mohammed's path to recovery was similar to my own. The book is called Dopamine Nation, Finding Balance in the Age of Indulgence. It's written by Anna Lemke, MD. Dopamine Nation by Anna Lemke.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, happy Friday, TGIF, Shabbat Shalom, Juma Mubarak. It's the end of the week, the beginning of the weekend. It's Anything Goes Friday. It's you and me for the next 3 hours. No guests today. I just got off CNN, by the way. I don't know if you caught it, but Pamela Brown was kind enough to have me on her program, along with a talk show host out of Iowa, Jeff. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his last name right now, but he a good guy. His main point was, we all love what Trump and Musk are doing because, we're wasting money with all these government programs. And I was asking, why are they doing this? More than half of all Teslas are made in China. Musk has been, according to the press reports, in regular communication with Putin for a couple of years. He cut off Starlink to Ukraine when they wanted to hit the Russian fleet in Crimea. Is this being done, all this gutting of our government, in order to pay for tax cuts for billionaires? Is it being done to help out Putin and Xi? Is it being done to stop the investigations? FAA was looking into SpaceX, and Musk got the head of the FAA fired. USAID was looking into Starlink. Musk got them shut down. The Department of Justice is looking into Tesla. They've got multiple investigations into Tesla. Are those getting shut down? I think you can probably bet that they are. So what the hell is going on here? So anyhow, we'll get into all that. Musk and Trump's national security sabotage, why Putin and Xi are laughing. I'll tell you about that in a moment. Also, one of Musk's racist bros who invaded the Treasury Department just resigned. And Musk's kids have apparently fed our secret federal information into a Microsoft AI program with no security protocols, or very few apparently, to look for places to cut to make room for the billionaire tax break. That all in the first hour. In the second hour of our program, why every American should care about CBS settling this dangerous Trump lawsuit. Even MAGA Republicans should be worried about this. And Trump orders key government agencies to cancel all media contracts. In the third hour of our program, Sotomayor goes off on presidential immunity, and Republicans are pushing a bill to ban prosecutors from going after officials who refuse to certify elections. Say what? It's downright weird. By the way, those of you who are fans of Louise's songs on this program, they are now available. We've been putting them out for about a week now, and this is the first announcement if you want to check them out. They're available on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, Tidal, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, Roblox, Luna, CapCut, Clara Musica, Savan, Agami, Bloomplay, NetEase, Cubase, and Jukes. And all you have to do is plug in Louise and Thom Hartmann. Louise, ampersand, Thom Hartmann, and sometimes just putting in Louise Hartmann will bring it up, but there's a couple of other Louise Hartmanns out there. So, and you can get the song every day, you know, for free and on your, whatever you call it, Spotify or and whatever it may be. All right, our op-ed today over at HartmannReport.com is titled Musk's and Trump's National Security Sabotage and Why Putin and Xi Are Laughing. These guys have created an absolute national security nightmare, and apparently on purpose. I mean, an unelected billionaire and his merry hacker band are rooting through our nation's secrets, poking around in your personal information, financial and medical records, and reportedly altering the computer code involved in paying our nation's bills. And most recently, they gave a 23-year-old working for Musk access to the Department of Energy, which manages America's nuclear weapons arsenal. One of his teenage colleagues who's also rummaging through our nation's secrets, reportedly runs websites in Russia. This is being managed by the same billionaire Trump donor the press says is in regular contact with Putin for the past 2 years and cut off Starlink to Ukraine, according to press reports, to prevent them from attacking the Russian fleet in Crimea. Musk was never elected to anything. He doesn't appear to have submitted to any kind of background checks, security checks. The people he's put inside the multiple federal agencies have no civil service, vetting. Remember back in 2016 when the Republicans were all hysterical that Hillary Clinton had a private server in her basement to handle her own personal email, and a couple of dozen government emails accidentally ended up on that server? It's a national security nightmare. The FBI has to look into this, says Jim Comey, just days before the election. That national security election, Trump is going to protect our secrets. Hillary Clinton is loose with these things. Yeah, right. And then Trump stole thousands of classified top secret documents, including our nuclear information, and left them in a publicly available bathroom where multiple alleged spies wandered through Mar-a-Lago. This week, the CIA sent an unclassified email to the White House with the names of all the new employees. New York Times reported, quote, some former officials said they worried that the list could be passed on to a team of newly hired young software experts working with Elon Musk and his government efficiency team. If that happened, the names of the employees might be more easily targeted by China, Russia, or other foreign intelligence services. One former agency officer called the reporting of the names in an unclassified email a counterintelligence disaster. Pamela Brown pointed out to me that, it's just that list of people from the last 2 years. No, it goes beyond that. If they're in the Treasury Department's payment system, they have access to the paychecks for every spy America has anywhere in the world. I mean, how much is that information worth? Are you really going to trust a 19-year-old hacker to not sell that to China or Russia and retire to Mallorca or something? I mean, gutting the CIA, putting Tulsi Gabbard in charge of our intelligence agencies, they just shut down the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force. We're no longer looking for foreign influence in our elections. Officially. Go ahead, Russia. Go ahead, Xi. Go ahead, Iran. Put your guy in charge of the United States. I mean, both of these dictators, Putin and Xi have to be laughing so hard that they risk a hernia. And that's just the beginning of the gifts that Trump and Musk are handing them. Both of these dictators have hated the USAID, the Agency for International Development, forever. Putin shut it down in 2012 in Russia. Xi spent over $1 trillion since the Road and Belt Initiative, Belt and Road Initiative was announced in 2013. $1 trillion trying to compete with USAID, which had a $35 billion budget last year. I mean, we're getting incredible value for the money we're spending with USAID. And they just shut this thing down? And of course, Trump has openly defined laws that Congress passed to allow China to continue to operate TikTok. He's just saying, we're going to ignore the law. And then he's alienated Mexico and China. Yeah, our two closest allies and trading partners. I mean, Trudeau and Sheinbaum just played this guy, right? They both agreed, yes, we'll give you troops on the border, no problem. Trump apparently didn't realize that there are already 10,000 troops on the border in both countries because of a deal they cut with Biden. So they were like, oh, yes, Mr. Trump, we'll do that for you. And Trump goes out and says, look at what I just got. It's been there all along, you fool. And then this indicted war criminal comes to Washington, D.C. and says, hey, Mr. Trump, I got kind of a problem here. We just destroyed Gaza. It's going to cost billions to rebuild it. And whoever goes building is going to get shot at. So and suicide bombed. So wouldn't you prefer to have American troops and American construction companies, maybe one owned by your son-in-law, maybe one owned by you, to rebuild Gaza instead of us poor Israelis having to do it? We really don't want our soldiers to be shot at. We don't want our construction crews to be suicide bombed. Would you please do that for us, Mr. Trump? And Trump goes, yeah, sure, no problem. He bought it hook, line, and sinker. Netanyahu's still in D.C. The Republicans are treating him like some kind of, emperor god. I mean, keep in mind, if we're going to put troops and construction crews in Gaza, the reason bin Laden attacked the United States was because we had an Air Force base in Saudi Arabia. He said, your forces occupy our countries. You spread your military bases throughout them. You corrupt our lands and you besiege our sanctities to protect the security of the Jews and to ensure the continuity of your pillage of our treasures. Yeah, that's why 9/11 happened. If you liked 9/11, you're going to love what comes next if Trump does this. Just saying he's going to do it, in fact, has probably already inflamed, a lot of upset. Now, we had Mark Pocan on yesterday, and he said basically that he thinks that Musk is doing all this, trying to gut all these government agencies and zero out their budgets to free up money for tax cuts for billionaires. And I'm sure that that's a piece of it. But I think it's much more insidious than that. I think that they are actually trying to destroy America. Elon Musk was not even an American citizen until recently. Donald Trump has, in my opinion, hated this country his whole entire life. He went over to Russia back in the 80s, and the Russian intelligence just embraced him and showered him with love and praise. And him and Ivana, and his wife, Ivana at the time, her father was a KGB agent. And Trump comes back to the United States and publishes an op-ed in the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the LA Times saying, hey, let's pull out of NATO. Just like Putin wants, or just like, it wasn't even Putin then. Just like Russia wants, just like the Soviet Union wants. He even did a campaign stop in New Hampshire in the 80s. I mean, Russia's been pushing this guy forever. There are only three forces that can stop them now: public opinion, independent media, and Democrats. I mean, they're already ignoring the courts. Now, maybe the courts can at the last minute here or something, but remember, it only took 53 days for Hitler to destroy democracy in Germany. Trump is trying to beat that record. So we need to show up, speak out, and demand that our Democratic politicians raise holy hell and do something to stop this process before there's nothing left of our country, of our government. It's 17 and a half minutes past the hour. I'll be picking up, I got a little more to share with you, and then I'll pick up your calls here on the other side of the break. It's Anything Goes Friday. Stay with us.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's the place where despair is not an option. Stay with us. And welcome back. Steve in Bellingham, Washington. Hey, Steve, what's on your mind today?
Hello, sir. I just wanted to try to inspire people a little bit. These are very dark, frightening, terrifying times. But Thomas Paine's birthday is coming up this Sunday.
Oh.
It used to be it used to be a tradition to celebrate his birthday with parties all over the country. He's my favorite founding father. He was an immigrant. He was poor, and he convinced the country that our revolution was not just a rebellion against the British king, but a rebellion for all of humanity against monarchy.
You're absolutely right. The best book that's ever been written on this, by the way, is by Professor Harvey Kaye of the University of Wisconsin at Madison, as I recall. And it's titled Thomas Paine and the Promise of America. It's just an absolutely brilliant history of the founding era through the eyes of Thomas Paine. It's just amazing.
I read that. Yes, I agree. And in 1776, Paine wrote the American Crisis pamphlet, which was read to our troops during the coldest winter, one of the coldest winters in American history. They were losing battle after battle. They didn't have enough boots. They had rags wrapped around their feet. They didn't have enough winter clothing. They didn't have enough ammunition. And they were about to give up. Soldiers were about to leave and desert. And his
George
pamphlet
Washington
was read to them. That's right. And it starts out with the quote, "These are the times that try men's souls.
Right.
The soldiers, the summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis shrink from the service of his country, but he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman."
Because tyranny like hell is not easily defeated.
That's correct. That he also said that.
Yeah.
And I feel like if those soldiers could stick it out through that winter, the least we can do is try to fight back in any way that we can.
Yeah. I like that. Thank you very much, Steve, for sharing an uplifting moment with us. Appreciate it. Frank in Thompson Falls, Montana. Hey, Frank, what's up?
Oh, not too much. Thanks for taking my call. I just have a few suggestions. I've been writing the paper and calling my representatives and stuff, but a lot of people don't know what's going on, so I've made like flashcards that say like, okay, $96.4 billion is contributed to the general fund by undocumented immigrants, that pay in. 23% of our businesses are owned by undocumented people.
Really?
And just go down with a list of 4 or 5 things on a card, and then instead of sitting there trying to discuss or argue with people, say, well, here's some facts for you. You might want to look into this.
That's
and
great.
The people that are open-minded will sit there and
Are
look
you making
at
them on
it
a printer or having them printed up as business cards or what?
No, I just take and do it on a piece of paper, write it out by hand, and then I just copy it out on my buddy's printer.
That's cool. That's great,
Yeah.
Frank.
It used to be that the representative I got would send me a letter back in response, but since Trump's got elected, he hasn't responded to me in any way.
Must be a Republican.
Oh, yeah,
that's
Senator
right. You're in
Gaines from Montana.
Yeah, I get it. Frank, thanks for the call. Thanks for the great suggestion. That's brilliant. I appreciate it. And keep up the great work. It's, 22 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Corporate raiders, when they acquire a company, basically strip it down. They take everything of value out of it, put it in their own pockets, leave just a husk of a company. I watched, Bain Capital do this with Clear Channel. In fact, they just ran it into bankruptcy. And they run off with all the cash. Well, that's what Donald Trump is doing to America right now. He's basically behaving like a corporate raider, taking, all the assets of this company and handing as many of them as possible off to billionaires and shutting down programs that benefit average working class people. This is, an all billionaire cabinet or largely billionaire cabinet with a billionaire president and they're dancing to the tune of the billionaires. It shouldn't surprise us, I suppose, but there's a whole article about it over in my Daily Take entitled Trump's Hostile Takeover of America, the Corporate Raiders' Final Heist, over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
There's a game being played at the highest stakes, where billionaires bend and the strong man takes. A whisper here, a favor there, America's enemies pull up a chair. Spies, secrets and sabotage, selling us out for a big mirage. Putin and Xi, they're raising a toast, while traitors at home do the most. One's got a crown, both tear the country down, down, down. Private deals in the dead of night, national security lost the fight. Spies, secrets and sabotage, selling us out for a big mirage. Putin and Xi, they're raising a toast, while traitors at home do the most. They claim they're patriots, flag held high, but watch the money and watch the lies. Who needs enemies across the sea when the real ones hold the key? Spies, secrets and sabotage.
Welcome back. 23 minutes past the hour. No, 25 minutes past the hour. This is a bad idea, says one of the heads of Department of Energy. CNN is reporting Elon Musk's gang of young, inexperienced Muscovites, actually this is David Casey's interpretation of it over on Daily Kos, continue their unbridled rampage of federal agencies. CNN is reporting that one of these Musk lackeys, a 23-year-old college dropout, has been given access to the Department of Energy's IT systems, including systems for the National Security Administration. He was once an intern for Musk's SpaceX. Energy Secretary Chris Wright granted access to DOGE representative, 23-year-old former SpaceX intern, over objections from members of the department's general counsel and chief information offices. He's not cleared to be in DOE, says a member of the general counsel's office. There are plans to install a SpaceX network security engineer at the Energy Department. Keep in mind, this is the agency, well, its website says, it protects our nation by designing and delivering safe, securable, reliable, and effective U.S. nuclear stockpile. They run our nuclear weapons, and he's got a 23-year-old in there? Here's another one. This guy just got fired yesterday, or resigned. He said that he has always backed eugenic immigration policies. You could not pay me to marry outside of my ethnicity. He's promoting hatred against Indian Americans. And he says, I was racist before it was cool. This is one of, Elon Musk's half a dozen little guys. Meanwhile, Elon Musk's people are apparently feeding all the data that they got out of the Treasury Department's payment system into Microsoft's AI program, asking, well, where should we cut? Who should we fire? Seriously? Our secrets are now in Microsoft's AI? What's on your mind? I'll pick up your calls right after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Anything Goes weekends. Stay with us. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Anita Hill's new book, Believing, Our 30-Year Journey to End Gender Violence. This is from Chapter 4, The Woke Generation. On October 17th, sitting at my desk reading through some of the many stories being shared under the banner of Me Too, I felt a sense of deja vu. A similar groundswell of outrage and activism had followed the Clarence Thomas hearings in 1991, and many believed it would be a turning point, that sexual harassment and assault would finally be taken seriously by society and the courts. We all hoped that the reports of long-standing abuses in Hollywood and other industries, and the flood of stories they unleashed would usher in a period of reckoning. All seemed to agree. Time was up, needed to be up, for sexism and its insidious chokehold on everyone's lives. Yet despite the progress made over the past few years, it's become apparent that the reckoning that has materialized has in no way matched the volume of complaints. And disappointment is mounting in those who expected me to wake-up call our government needed to address gender-based violence. The truth is, I'm not surprised. History has taught me that it'll take more than mere testimony to solve the deeply embedded problem of this form of violence. The Me Too movement did accomplish something that did not exist before 2017. It broke open public conversation about the harsh reality and pervasive nature of gender-based violence. People around the globe, aided by social media and a broadened media landscape, shared stories of sexual harassment and assault that were horrific and familiar. It also prompted a more nuanced conversation about all that falls under the gender-based violence umbrella and how it creeps into our lives at an early age, follows us from place to place. No longer could one credibly claim that the abuses a few had stepped up to complain about in courts were fictitious or overblown. One of the most troubling Me Too revelations was how often and regularly young people experience gender violence. Survivors and victims of all genders described abuse that began when they were children and continued on a daily basis in our elementary, middle, and high schools, generational wave after wave. With participants of all ages, the movement made clear that gender-based violence has existed for generations in precisely the same forms as it exists today, and that it will continue to be the case until we let go of the persistent myth that one day a generation will come along that will no longer tolerate it. It won't magically disappear any more than pollution or poverty or racism or hunger or any of the other evils that are recurring features of our human experience. I remember when it was thought that the baby boomer generation would be the one who would put bias aside, along with the violence prompted by prejudice and animus. We were the generation that criticized our parents for segregating housing, schools, and workplaces, and for tolerating glass ceilings in pregnancy or parental discrimination that blocked women's success. But though boomers preached love and peace, they largely ignored intimate partner violence in our homes, sexual extortion on work sites, and sexual assault in our schools. It's no surprise that we have now seen prominent baby boomers, including actors, politicians, and journalists, exiting the scene in shame. It is true that Gen Zers and millennials are more accepting of LGBTQ plus people, less tolerant of racism, and more likely to say that sexual harassment is a problem, according to public opinion polls. And optimists, me included, would like to believe that a new generation's thinking about differences will lead to a natural evolution of ideas and conduct in our colleges and universities, as well as our workplaces, homes, and streets. We cite promising surveys providing proof that a higher generation of Gen Zers and millennials think same-sex marriage is good for society, that people ought to avoid offending people from different backgrounds, and that online profiles that ask about a woman's gender should include options other than man or woman. We take statistics verifying that 91% of Gen Zers believe that everyone is equal and should be treated equally. We read articles declaring that because of these progressive attitudes, the youngest generation won't tolerate sexual harassment in our workplace. And thus, they represent our hope for ending gender-based violence. So we tell ourselves that we only need to wait for them to come of age or for a change of the guard, the tipping point where they will hold most government and workplace positions and can implement policies that reflect their progressive values. We also ignore the culture that the 20 and 30-year-olds of today grew up in, and how it has shaped their thinking and behavior. Many millennials and Gen Zers may lean toward liberal policies and ideas, but a significant portion of them will not, and do not. A 2018 Pew poll showed that only roughly 30% of both groups approved of Trump's job performance, and nearly 40% were not convinced that racial and ethnic diversity in the United States is a good thing. Big questions are yet to be unanswered. What political and social events will shape their thinking in the future? And will progressive ideas inspire action against gender violence? Or will younger generations prioritize other causes? More than polls, online activities of teens and tweens offer us a glimpse of how much we can count on a younger generation to evolve us into a society of egalitarianism. The book is by Anita Hill. It's titled Believing, Our 30-Year Journey to End Gender Violence. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out.
Built their empire brick by greed, while working hands met every need. The rules were bent, the truth ignored. The wealthy few now own the board. Musk and Bezos, their fortunes soar, while families struggle, wanting more. Congress trades on secret ties. Oligarchs rise as freedom dies. 2025, the year of American oligarchy.
Back 35 minutes past the hour, and in just a second I want to pick up your phone calls, but the Lincoln Project just released an absolutely mind-boggling new television ad. I mean, it's over on YouTube. You can find it on the Lincoln Project site. But this is really hard-hitting stuff. Check this out.
Who is threatening the Social Security benefits you worked hard for all your life? Elon Musk. Who gets to look at the personal information the government has on you in its databases? Elon Musk. Who controls the computer systems that decide if you get your tax refund, or disaster relief, or Medicare benefits? Elon Musk. Who gets billions in taxpayer money every year, all while controlling the government's payment system? Elon Musk. President Musk says he wants at least $2 trillion in cuts. That's your Social Security. That's your Medicare. That's America's roads and bridges. That's an economic depression. You think you voted for Trump, but you didn't. You voted for Elon Musk. All hail President Elon Musk.
Yeah, and at the very end, he's doing the Hitler salute. That's incredible. That's incredible. All right, so what's on your mind? Leon in Maroa, Illinois. Hey, Leon, what's up?
Hey, good morning, Tom. Thank you for being you and everything you do. I caught you on CNN a few minutes ago.
Oh, well, thank you, Leon.
Sure. I was watching Colbert's show last night, and he talked about the end zones being changed to, they used to say, end racism.
Yeah, now it says, let's all love each other or something like that.
Yeah. So
and this is to not offend Trump, because he's come into the game.
Right. That's I called, I Googled and found the NFL phone number in New York.
Oh, really?
I can share that with you if you'd like, but I thought they switch over to a customer care recording where you record your message.
Yeah.
So I told him how disgusted I was and the way they were coddling and bowing down to this racist president, and told him I was totally disgusted with them.
That's great.
So
you don't need to put the phone number out. If people can just, it's where do you find it on the NFL's website? I'm assuming it's like what, NFL.com?
Yes, I think it was. But if you want, you can have the number. It's great.
No, I'd rather not put the number on the air. But
okay.
If you can tell people how to find it easily, that would be useful.
Sure. Just NFL.com. I'm pretty sure that's where I found that. You had to hunt for it. It's down at the bottom, and
there might be a contact. Usually there's a contact list at the very bottom of the website.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I think people should flood their phone line the rest of the day. They probably won't be there the rest of the week. So
sounds
take
like a
care.
Plan. Yeah, thanks, Leon, and thanks for your kind words. Yep. Roger in Seattle. Hey, Roger, what's up?
Thank you for having me, Tom. I want to thank you also for having the Pollen book. I'm a spiritual director of 21 years here, and wanted to, say that I've heard of not only spiritual directors, but other medical people wanting to medically study the effects of psychedelics rather than the early, blowout.
Pollen was a real pioneer in this. Michael Pollan. Yeah.
But anyway, I also know that you must have some spirituality because you've mentioned the Congregational Church and M. Scott Peck, so I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. What my main topic was to applaud the FBI. I think it's playing right into what the Democrats should do against the throw it against the wall and see what sticks. So that, okay, they get the sensitive data from DOE that the Russians and the Chinese wanted, and they didn't get it by a direct assault on CIA or FBI, but they got it through the back door with this flunky that Musk hired to go into the Department of Energy. Because what happens is General Counsel doesn't get to all of the people that the Musk and the Trump people go to. So until they find out and get reinforced what their legal responsibilities are, they should just treat the Trump and the Muskites as Muscovites, because they are like a Russian spy, a Chinese spy, Iranian spy. Until they show them that they are certified federal employees with security clearance, they have no right to that stuff.
Yeah, one of these guys says, I was a racist before it was cool. Another guy runs websites in Russia. Another guy, the guy that you're talking about who's in the Department of Energy, he's a college dropout. I mean, what the hell is going on here, Roger?
Well, again, they're going to federal employees that have never been confronted with somebody who's acting like a Chinese or Russian spy and saying, give me all your secrets. And the FBI and the CIA know what they're supposed to say when they just, where's your security clearance? Where's your federal employee badge? And none of those guys have it. Right. Musk on down have not passed their security checks. So they need to go back to their general counsel and say, I will give you the information you want as soon as I clear it with my general counsel. I worked for the federal government for 30 years, and that's what you do when you don't know the answer. You don't want to be buffaloed by the bluster of a convicted felon as president.
Yeah.
So, I want to try to give all my current colleagues who are still working for the federal government advice to go to your general counsel when you get confronted with these idiots, and then say, I'll give it to you as soon as I get the written permission from my general counsel that you can have all the information you want.
Right, assuming your general counsel still has access to their office and their email account. That's not the case over at USAID, apparently.
Their, underlings would know the basics, that who can get Social Security numbers, who can get financial information, who can get our top secret or just our regular secrets. So they have to go back to the beginning and pretend that they're a new employee. And what would they do if a Chinese, Russian, or Iranian spy wanted our secrets?
Yep. I'm with you. Roger, thank you very much. Bill in St. Helens, Oregon. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today?
Two quick thoughts. Number one, every single time, well, maybe not every time, but everybody should try and make it a point. Every time they say Trump did this, Trump and the Republican Party, we want these two inextricably linked.
Yep.
When one goes down, we want the other to go.
That's all hail King Trump. Yep.
And number two, you're an expert in this area, but you know what? I understand that articles of incorporation no longer require social responsibility. We allow that to happen.
Yep.
But the RNC is incorporated out of Washington, D.C., and they're clearly a co-conspirator of a seditionist attempting to overthrow our government, violating the Constitution daily. And if nothing else, through their inaction, they're engaged in criminal activity. Now, if that's not the grounds for revoking articles of incorporation, I don't know what is.
Well, I think you make a good case that could be argued politically. I doubt it would stand up legally. but I appreciate your perspective, Bill, and broadly I agree with it. I completely agree with it.
Yeah, quick thought on this. You just bring it up. You just throw it out there. It's chum in the water. The idea is not that, I've read it, that it's complex, so many legal issues that probably wouldn't happen in our lifetime, but it needs to be a national discussion. Let's throw it out. Let's see what the American people think, because every American person we call up their senator or representative and say, revoke their articles of incorporation. It's amazing how coercive that and it's a simple thing to do.
No, I totally get it. And the other question is, has the Republican Party become a racketeering and criminal organization? Should it be investigated under the RICO laws? But again, now that the Republicans control, all the police agencies at the federal level, nothing like that is going to happen. But Bill, I get it. I totally get it. Mark, Bill, I got to move along. Thank you. Mark in Spring Hill, California. Hey, Mark, what's on your mind today?
Well, with the words that mean things, I was reminded of the Fun Boy 3 song, "The Lunatics Have Taken Over the Asylum."
Yeah, you think?
And I think lunatics would be the perfect thing for us to use instead of them or idiots or whatever.
Yeah.
As it spells it out. And briefly, my wife came up with a great one, I think. If we ever find ourselves standing in front of a judge for any reason, murder or petty theft, we simply plead the 47th.
The 47th? Oh, that we can do anything because Trump can do anything?
Right.
There you go. Okay, Mark, those are good. Those are really good. Thank you very much for that. And thanks for listening to KPFK there in California. We'll be right back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's roughly 45 minutes past the hour, 15 minutes before the hour. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, the place where despair is not an option. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Fair and only slightly unbalanced. I'll be right back with your calls. And welcome back. Mike in Lomita, California. Hey, Mike, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Yesterday, someone was reading a list of clubs that are now banned from West Point under the
and all the military academies,
Trump
apparently.
anti-diversity initiative, and it got me to thinking, well, what if that policy had been in effect a couple of centuries by now? What would have been different? And start out with the surrender of General Lee at Appomattox, and all those pictures, photographs and paintings. There's a guy standing behind General Grant, and that was Colonel Ellis Parker, who was an Onondaga Indian and was his adjutant. And
I didn't know.
Perhaps the best general of the war on the Indian side.
What is an adjutant,
William
Mike?
Sherman.
Forgive my ignorance. I've heard the word before, but I don't know exactly what it means.
It's like the assistant administratively.
I see.
The one who takes things
right-hand
and puts
man,
them into
basically.
effect. Right. Somebody has to know how to work through all the different structures in the Army.
Right. Got it.
But anyway, that being the case, we also might mention that perhaps the best Union general in the Army, William Sherman, would not have been in his position because his middle name was an Indian name, Tecumseh, being for a Shawnee warrior who led a resistance against the loss of his people's lands and all. And he was so scrupulous that they gave him the nickname Saint Tecumseh. Guess we won't find him in the BB Netanyahu group.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just skimming the surface, though, because I'm sure Mr. Acting President would not want to take any money from someone who is representing diversity, and all the money he ever got from computers, he can probably credit to the work of a convicted homosexual named Alan Turing, who we did a lot of theoretical work in the 1940s that led to the modern world of computers. So I'm sure Mr. Musk will be happy to give back all the money from that. And then,
well, and let's not forget that the internet was created with federal funds.
That's absolutely true.
It's supposed to be ours.
Well, yes. Yeah. And while we're at it, let's talk about the World War II application of a Native American Indian language, Dina, or as we
the Cherokee talkers, Navajo. Or the Apache talkers, rather?
No, the Navajo.
Navajo, that's right, Navajo, thank you.
Yeah. And if their culture had been wiped out, as happened with so many tribes, and the language lost, thousands of Americans would have lost their lives that did not in World War II, and a lot of people would be lacking a grandfather now, which I guess you could say means they would not be here. Also, in the terms of winning World War II, there are 7,000 women at Bletchley Park in England who helped lead to the breaking of the Nazi Enigma code. Mm-hmm. Without them, God knows where we'd be. Maybe Musk would prefer that world. But in any event, they were there and they did it. He'd
get to do his Hitler salutes all the time.
Yeah, he'd get rewarded for it. And remember all those black women that basically did the math that put John Glenn's orbital success on the map when America really, really needed a success in space.
Yeah. Brilliant, Mike. What a great list. Thank you so much for the call. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour. Stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. I have 8 suggestions for Democrats for messaging. Democrats seem to have a messaging problem right now. First, Democrats must frame the fight in simple moral terms. Don't be wonky like, hey, we need to expand social safety net. No, say no child in America should go to bed hungry. Second, Democrats need to stop playing defense and instead seize the populist high ground, like when FDR said, they are unanimous in their hate for me and I welcome their hatred. Third, ruthlessly define the Republican opposition and the morbidly rich oligarchs who own them. Fourth, tell stories instead of facts. Reagan did this with the black welfare queen. He had to lie about it, but we've got lots of great stories. That's number 4. There's 4 more. And they're all over at HartmannReport.com. The title of the article is, If Obama Had Sent a Mob to Kill a Cop, Republicans Would Never Let You Forget It. And it's all about how Democrats can reinvent their messaging to start winning elections big. Check it out.
Elon's in D.C. whispering deals, shaking hands, pulling strings, greasing the wheels. Department of Education, cut it down to size, keep them dumb, keep them blind, feed them AI lies. He ain't building rockets, he ain't building cars, he's buying up laws, playing God with the czars. Bureaucrats fold, pockets getting fatter while he codes the future, controlling the chatter. What does Musk want? What's he really after? DC's on a leash, bowing to the master. Power ain't enough, he's the puppet caster, flipping the switch on democracy faster.
Just a reminder, these are all over on Spotify and Apple Music and everywhere else.
Treasury whispering
let's listen to another verse.
dollars into crypto laundering scams, tax breaks for Tesla, write-offs for SpaceX, and he tweets free speech while he cashes the checks. He ain't building rockets, he ain't building cars, he's buying up laws, playing God with the
There you
czars.
go. 52 minutes past the hour. Let's pick up your calls here. Jessica in Chicago. Hey, Jessica, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I agree with your rant. He's destroying everything in our country. And Musk is so malicious with he has a desire to cause pain and suffering for his sheer enjoyment. On Friday, when I was watching Alex Wagner interview a woman who worked at the USAID, and she told how Musk and his army of men stormed in there and destroyed the place. She was upset how Musk tore all the photos off the wall. And the photos had pictures of the workers with the countries that they helped. The photos had pictures of the African children that they helped.
Lots of pictures of black people. They literally took the pictures of black people off the walls at USAID?
They confiscated them. They were helping them, save them from starvation. They confiscated it. Musk left a wall of empty frames. And they took their phone numbers, all their contacts around the world, and she wishes she could call her contacts and tell them why the U.S. isn't showing up. Musk had so much rage when he went in there and destroyed them.
Well, USAID was investigating Starlink.
Oh.
They had opened an investigation. I don't know if it was a criminal investigation or civil. I don't know the details of it, but they had opened an investigation into Starlink. So Musk was pissed off. You know, when the FAA opened an investigation into SpaceX, Musk tweeted about that. You know, just like he tweeted USAID is evil, it must be destroyed. He tweeted about the guy who was the FAA administrator, specifically named this guy, and Trump fired him.
He's so vicious. It's unbelievable. And they were about to send seed to Ukraine. Yeah. Russia had destroyed all their seed, and they used to be the breadbasket of the world.
Yep.
He's going to kill millions of people. You know what I did yesterday? I called the White House, and I asked to talk to President Musk. And I said, President Musk, you can save over $20 billion right away, cutting some federal spending. SpaceX, the rockets explode. Tesla's been in so many deadly accidents. And then Starlink is a waste of money. So I've been leaving messages for President Musk, and I think that's what we need to do.
There you go. Good on you, Jessica. Thank you so much for the call and for making my day. I appreciate it. Susan in Caldwell, Idaho. Hey, Susan, what's on your mind today?
I have a couple of topics. First, hope, because we need to be collectively organized so that we can resist. An individual isn't going to cut it. I'd like to point out that there is an AFL-CIO birth retirement organization called Alliance for Retired Americans. That is one of the litigants in the lawsuits that are now proceeding against Elon Musk in our Treasury Department. You can join for a nominal fee. Just put in your search engine, Alliance for Retired Americans. They're very friendly websites. It doesn't cost more than $10 to join a year. And these are people who actually work for the good of retired people for our Social Security that we all paid for our Medicare that we're still paying for with our Part B deduction. And they will take your membership, and they are actually standing up. Their organization that we all know, that's the Front for United Healthcare. Then, on bird flu, look to the Canadian websites. Just put in your search engine, highly pathogenic bird flu outbreaks in Canada, and you will find user-friendly websites with actual information that trace this out, this current continental outbreak from 21-22, where our egg prices started to climb. They show everything they've been doing, and tangentially they reference what we have and have not been doing. And I'd like to point out, as of January, not one dairy cat herd in Canada is infected with the bird flu because of measures that they took that we never did.
Oh, really? Wow.
Just look there.
Amazing.
We never tested our cattle between
Well, not only that, we're still feeding chicken feathers to cattle. I mean, it's apparently the main way the cattle are getting infected. Apparently they don't do that in Canada, Susan?
We have no idea.
Yeah. There you go. Susan, I got to run. Thank you for the call. We'll be back on the other side of the break here at the top of the hour with more of your calls and the news of the day. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free, and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is The Case Against George W. Bush by Stephen C. Markoff, with a foreword by Richard Clark. This is from the foreword. For some Americans, George W. Bush looks good by comparison to the incumbent, Donald Trump. In his post-presidency, Bush has devoted himself to worthy causes and acted in a bipartisan manner. The 43rd president should, however, be judged not by comparison to America's worst president, nor by what Bush may have done after leaving office. He should be evaluated for his actions in office, his nonfeasance, misfeasance, and malfeasance. This volume from Stephen Markoff provides the evidence for such an evaluation. You can judge for yourself. For me, there is little doubt. I, unfortunately, witnessed Bush and his administration make many of their most cataclysmic decisions. I was in the room when some of them occurred. When in December 2000, the Supreme Court of the United States decided on a 5-4 vote that George W. Bush would become the 43rd president, I was the Special Assistant to the President for National Security and National Coordinator for Security and Counterterrorism for President William J. Clinton. I anticipated leaving the White House on January 20th, 2001, when the Clinton presidency ended. However, I was asked by the incoming administration to stay on for an unspecified period because, as it was explained to me, there was no one on Bush's incoming team who knew much about terrorism or who wanted my job. Departing Clinton administration officials stressed to the newly arriving Bush team and to Bush himself the importance and urgency of dealing with the al-Qaeda terrorist threat. Indeed, the Clinton administration had developed an extensive series of further steps to combat al-Qaeda that it would have taken had it continued in office, or indeed had Vice President Al Gore assumed office in 2001. Within days of Bush's inauguration, I asked for an urgent meeting at the cabinet level to review both the threat and the plan to ratchet up the measures against al-Qaeda. No such meeting occurred until a week before 9/11, and that meeting was inconclusive. From January 2001 through the second week in September, Bush personally received frequent intelligence warnings that al-Qaeda posed an imminent threat. He convened no meetings to address the issue. His inner circle of national security advisors did nothing, despite frequent urgings by the CIA director and the national coordinator, including such vivid imagery as our asking in writing that they consider a near future in which there would be hundreds of dead bodies in the streets of America. Instead, they focused on Iraq and the regime of Saddam Hussein. Bush's nonfeasance cost American lives. Following the deaths of over 3,000 innocent civilians on 9/11, the Bush administration attempted to tie the al-Qaeda attack to Iraq, which had nothing to do with it. Despite CIA and FBI analyses that reiterated Iraq's non-involvement, the Bush administration almost immediately followed the 9/11 attack by beginning to make plans to invade Iraq. Senior Bush officials spoke privately of the need to demonstrate our strength in the wake of the 9/11 attack, show our might by destroying the largest army in the Middle East, and thereby also prove our willingness to take U.S. military casualties to achieve our ends. Prior to 9/11, foreign terrorists who had attacked Americans had been successfully sought out throughout the world and arrested by U.S. law enforcement authorities, assisted by the intelligence community. Many terrorists had been returned to U.S. territory, given their Miranda rights, provided with counsel, tried in our civilian criminal courts, convicted, sentenced, and incarcerated in maximum security prison cells. One, tried by the Commonwealth of Virginia, was executed. Despite this record, the Bush administration abandoned criminal process and established its own extrajudicial system for dealing with terrorists post 9/11. That new system used techniques that any objective observer would judge were torture. Perhaps the most well-known torture technique was the procedure known as waterboarding. The United States government had tried World War II Japanese military personnel for using the exact same technique. They were found guilty, and some were executed by hanging. The United States Senate's Committee on Intelligence conducted the most extensive oversight and investigation and examination in its history on the issue of torture during the Bush administration. That voluminous study concluded that torture was employed and that it had not, despite administration claims to the contrary, uniquely revealed information that had prevented terrorist attacks. To the contrary, it showed that tortured prisoners, unable to satisfy their interrogators with information that the terrorists did not know, instead guessed at what kind of story would stop the torture and then fabricated information of the kind they thought their prosecutors wanted to hear. Bush was not only aware of the torture, he approved it. His role in giving authorization for such acts can rightly be considered criminal malfeasance, as should his orders to invade Iraq. Among the many justifications the Bush administration considered for their invasion and occupation of Iraq, they chose finally to make the alleged weapons of mass destruction existence their chief complaint. The book, The Case Against George W. Bush by Stephen C. Markoff.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to the second hour of our program. Jake Tapper went off on what every American should know about the CBS lawsuit. This is awful. First, Trump sued ABC because George Stephanopoulos said that he was convicted of rape, when in fact the judge said, yes, he was convicted of sexual abuse, but it's, any reasonable person would call that rape, or words to that effect. Stephanopoulos wanted to fight the lawsuit. ABC, which I believe is owned by Disney, didn't want to. They didn't want to piss off Trump, and so they gave him $15 million. And so then he sues CBS for a 60 Minutes piece where he says they were too friendly to Kamala Harris and too harsh on him. And so now CBS is trying to merge with Paramount, or Paramount buying CBS or whatever. I don't know the details of the deal, but this is something that had been held up by antitrust considerations, legitimately, I would say. And of course, under normal circumstances, Republicans, they don't care about antitrust, so they would just say, yeah, we'll just go ahead with it. No problem at all. But this is crazy. Now they're saying, oh yeah, we'll pay Trump off, if he'll let our merger go ahead. I mean, this is a bribe, right? CBS and Paramount are basically offering to bribe Trump. And probably NBC is next. And once he's got these networks cowed, they're going to start getting very, very nervous about saying anything that might, contradict Trump or might challenge him, or Musk, for that matter, or make any of these people look bad. We're going to end up with state media, I fear, if we don't do something about this. If we don't, well, I'm not sure what we can do, frankly. But this just seems to me like really, really bad news. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has directed the General Services Administration to terminate every single media contract expensed by the agency. Basically the way this works is if you work in the federal government, you have, depending on which agency you work for, what you do, and your need to have access to news. And frankly, a lot of these people are like staffers for members of Congress, the White House, and whatnot. You have basically a budget to subscribe to publications where you can get your news. Politico is one of them. That's the one that they're all focusing on. But there's a bunch of them. I mean, you can subscribe to CNN, you can subscribe to BBC, et cetera. Bloomberg. These are all subscription services. And, people in government subscribe to these services so that they can, find out what's going on. Well, Trump and Musk have said, no, you can't anymore. That's the end of that. Yeah. And this is the information about this has been around for a long time, but now, oh my God, they're subscribing to Politico. We can't have that. It's really quite incredible. And then finally, just to give you the details, this is from Marcy Jones over on Wonkette, the Wonkette Substack. And this is, based on a lot of reporting from Wired magazine. By the way, I went over their website yesterday to renew my subscription to Wired, just by way of saying keep it up. Newsweek is also on this. Newsweek is reporting that this 23-year-old, his first name is Luke, is now listed in the Department of Energy's staff directory as an information engineer. She notes just some kid who can barely shave in the systems of the department overseeing our nuclear weapons. Nothing to see here. Oh, and now Doge kids are in the systems at the Consumer Fraud Protection Bureau and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Meanwhile, at the Treasury Department, Jonathan Bloom, the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Legislative Affairs, has been claiming that all this access is only read-only. They can't break anything. But no, they're just lying. Reuters, points this out, that they have administrative access to the OPM computers days after the January 20th inauguration. I mean, this has been going on for a couple of weeks, apparently. At the same time that Musk and Doge have been over on Twitter nonstop bragging about how they're feeding USAID through the wood chipper. And now, apparently, Musk is reportedly, this again from Wonkette, Musk is reportedly building his own custom-generated AI chatbot for the General Services Administration. They're going to call it GSAI. And like Grok, the AI over on Twitter that 33% of the time, according to Wonkette, gives false information to its inaccurate or misleading information to its users. This is just incredible. All of these billionaires that are pushing this thing, and I just, it's frankly shocking. And this is also of tremendous benefit to Musk and all the other all his billionaire buddies, particularly if they can cut enough government programs, screw enough poor people, starve enough hungry people, that they can free up a couple $1 trillion for more tax cuts for the billionaires, which, according to Mark Pocan, is their main goal. I think their main goal is to destroy the American government. I think they're ideologues who don't believe in government. They want to replace our government with a tech bro technocracy, where basically the government is run by AI and a CEO basically who runs the country. And I think Elon Musk wants to be that CEO. He doesn't want to be president. He wants to be chief executive officer, because CEOs are kings. Presidents are merely, a position within a democracy that is subordinate to the people and that has to answer to the two other branches of government. But CEOs, they don't have to answer to anybody. So that's my take on it. So what's on your mind today? It's Anything Goes Weekend. George in Coarse Gold, California. Hey, George, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Regarding messaging, there's a word that we hear like every day, all day long. It's spelled DOGE. And I would like to promote the idea of pronouncing it dodgy.
Well, you know where the word came from?
from a Bitcoin or some kind of...
No. I discovered this years ago when Louise and I went to Venice. This was back in the 80s in Venice, Italy. And Venice used to be an independent city-state, and it was ruled by an absolute tyrant, an autocrat, an oligarch. He was the richest guy, and he ruled Venice and the regions around it. And his title was Doge, D-O-G-E. And there's this huge palace in the middle of it's right next to St. Mark's Cathedral, in the middle of Venice, called the Doge's Palace. You can look it up. That's where the word came from.
Well, Tom, the reason I said that, do you remember when we got into the Iraq War, Tony Blair was promoting a dossier. They called it the Dodgy dossier.
Yeah, I think that was just
and
British
it really works
slang.
when you're reading an article and you see that word and you say dodgy. It really works. It works for everything. It says Musk's dodgy organization, and it all works.
Yeah, I like that, George. I'll try to remember to start doing that. That's a good one.
And also, as soon as he fired all the inspector generals, he should have been impeached.
I agree.
Thank you.
I absolutely agree. It's these are the guys who look for waste, fraud, and corruption, and Trump gets rid of them. Why? Because he's planning waste, fraud, and corruption. Come on, this isn't rocket science. George, thank you. It's 14 and a half minutes past the hour. Back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, helping you win the water cooler wars. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So Marco Rubio says, yeah, they're going to kill off USAID. This is obscene. This is just obscene. And welcome back. Alice in Sierra Madre, California. Hey, Alice, what's on your mind today?
Hello, Tom.
Hey.
So I have a question. So since Doge was set up by an executive order, it was set up by an executive order. It's not a legitimate department. As we know, a new department can only be set up through Congress. So I'm heartened by the fact that lawsuits are making progress against Doge's and Musk's actions. But my question is, why hasn't someone sued against the EO, the executive order itself that set up Doge? I mean, there are lawsuits against executive orders all the time, as you know. So we need to go to the cause, not the symptoms. So that's my question. And is it in the works? How can we make this happen? I say we set up a national GoFundMe page and raise the money for we the people to sue against Doge. So please address this.
Sure.
I've been calling representatives.
My understanding is the way they did it is they took the U.S. Digital Service, which Barack Obama created, with the goal of having a branch of the government where you could have really smart programmers who would be like a resource to other branches of government that need to update their AI or their IT systems and things like that. And so they took the U.S. Digital Service, which already existed. It's not a cabinet agency, but it is an actual real agency, and essentially renamed it. So I'm not sure that you could have a successful lawsuit about renaming an existing agency. What you could have a lawsuit about is what they're doing, and that's where all the lawsuits are happening. So that's my guess as to why you're not seeing a lawsuit against the EO.
So you don't think that there could be a lawsuit made against taking over the U.S. Digital Service and renaming it?
I don't know. I don't.
For a completely different.
Yeah.
For a completely different purpose.
I am not an expert on federal law, and I'm not an attorney.
Okay.
So it would be a good question to put to Dean Obeidallah. It's like, who is an attorney?
Yeah. So if there are legal experts out there.
Yeah, there are. Maybe one will call in. We'll find out. Alice, thanks. That's a great question.
Okay,
Thank
you.
Augusta in Cape Vincent, New York. Hey, Augusta, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching Free Speech
Hi
TV.
there, Tom. Hey. Love your show. Love everything. Listen, Trump is now going after the reporting of the weather. And we know why. This is a vengeful man. He remembers things that happened 9 years ago when he predicted that we would have a hurricane in Alabama. And the weather system said, no, that's not true. It usually goes up the coast, blah, blah, blah. And they put him down on that. And he was so angry over this that he went on air and all over and told everybody with a chalk mark in his hand or a Sharpie, and told them, no, this is where the hurricane is going. Now he wants to close down the weather service.
Right, privatize it.
He's trying to, such a dictator we have, such a dictator. And we're going to have much more problems until we get the Democrats up off their asses and really working to change this. I have, at least now, I've gotten 15 people to write letters to their respective congressmen, and et cetera, in 4 different states. Good. Because you can't do it except in your own state. The problem we have is that we need more people to write physical letters, because it's not good enough to go online and say something. Or even
I agree. A quick note, Augusta. Letters are delayed by 6 weeks because they have to go through anthrax processing. Postcards are not.
Oh, my God.
You can send postcards.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, so just so you know.
All right, postcards would do it.
Postcards don't need anthrax processing. Augusta, thank you for the call. We'll be back. It's 19 minutes past the hour. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com. It's the great revenge. Trump's Orwellian America is taking shape. The key to it was this insane executive order titled Ending the Weaponization of the Federal Government. And basically what it does is it sets up the weaponization of the federal government. It proclaims that the Biden administration was, using the Justice Department to go after Trump people and Republicans, and it does it in a way that basically rationalizes they're doing the same thing. This is a absolute danger to our republic. This executive order and Trump's assertions around it, and you can read all about it. There's a whole op-ed about it, titled The Great Revenge, Trump's Orwellian America Takes Shape, over at HartmannReport.com. Get ready for the investigations, the arrests, and the show trials. HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
Shut the gates, locked the doors, took the food from the kids, left the poor on the floor, said if you can't pay, you don't belong, while his friends count gold and toast to the con. He's tearing it down, brick by brick, ripping the spine from the government quick. Trump's last job, the final heist, leave the people starving while the billionaire slice.
Welcome back. By the way, the song you just heard and all the other songs are available over on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, Tidal, Deezer, iHeartRadio, et cetera, et cetera. And just look for Louise and Thom Hartmann as the artist. And we do not assert copyright. You're welcome to republish them, put them anywhere you want, share them with your friends, download them, put in your music. I think some of them are pretty cool. So, what's on your mind today? Marty in Wixom, Michigan. Hey, Marty, what's up?
Hey, Tom. I'm really glad to hear about that with the music. That's terrific.
Cool.
The reason for my call today is that I have a suggestion for a strategy to help counter Musk's widespread attack on federal government employees, programs, and agencies. Mm-hmm. And along with that, a request for something that you might be able to do to help with that, in addition to the tremendous work you're already doing, of course. The basic gist is that while Musk and Trump have a number of underlying nefarious objectives with these attacks, and I agree with you that part of that is that Trump may actually want to hurt America, unfortunately, the primary public-facing rationale they use is that because of our terrible budget deficit, we can't afford to do these things and employ all these people. We just can't afford it.
Right.
Musk is using Steve Bannon's old strategy of flooding the zone by launching multiple simultaneous attacks, rather than just play whack-a-mole and try to counter each individual attack with particular logical argument, I think Dems need to also counter Musk's attack by going after their fundamental rationale that we have to slash these programs because we can't afford them. Dems need to repeatedly emphasize that the reason we have this bad budget deficit is 50 years of huge Republican tax cuts for corporations and the rich.
Right. If you add up the impact of every tax cut that was passed by Ronald Reagan, he had three major ones, the two big ones by George W. Bush, and the one by Donald Trump in his first term. If you just add up those 5 or 6 tax cuts from those three presidents, it's more than $35 trillion, which is our deficit right now, or 36.
Exactly. And if we fix that problem, we can afford all of these federal programs that Musk is attacking to help people and more.
That's right. But then the billionaires will have to pay their fair share, Marty. They're very upset about that.
Well, this is where my request for you comes in. I know you've often written in detail about this history of Republican tax giveaways to the rich, how damaging that's been. I'm wondering if you already have or could produce a brief one-page summary of talking points to make that specific connection. In other words, all of Musk's terrible attacks are completely unnecessary if we eliminate those huge Republican tax cuts for the rich. I think having that asset widely available would really help all of us out here trying to oppose the Musk attacks.
The best way for me to do that, Marty, and thanks for the inspiration, is to write another op-ed about that for Hartmann Report, because those things get republished over on Common Dreams and Raw Story and the New Republic. So, and I can do, they can be brief. They can be, short enough that they print on 1 or 2 pages. So thank you.
No, I think that would be really helpful, I think. Thank you very much.
I've done this before in long form with the kind of new Santa Claus theory and all that kind of stuff, but thanks for the inspiration, Marty. I'll seriously consider that this weekend. Thank you. Joe in Cupertino, California. Hey, Joe, what's up?
Hi, Tom. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm fine. I hope you are too.
Great. I'm still a little under the weather, but that's okay. I wanted to share something with you and our public, our community here that I just thought of. I've been in despair, as you imagine, the last couple of weeks, but trying to do something constructive. And an idea came to me by way of a seminar that I was attending. And in some areas of the country, they let prisoners vote. They let people in the prison vote. And I thought, well, wait a minute, that's kind of strange. But apparently, there's a large population of incarcerated people that are eligible to vote, but because they're incarcerated, there's not a real outreach.
Right, it's mostly in former Confederate states that they don't let felons or former felons vote.
Right, but these are not necessarily felons, but people with misdemeanors that are just by virtue of the fact that they're serving time, are in jail or incarcerated. And so in some places they allow that. But I think it would be great if we could get, because this would be something that each state would have to do, I would imagine, is because states set up the voting, who votes. But the registrars go out and they, should I say, petition the wardens to participate in this process so that when they re-enter society, they feel like they're vested. And they let, in some states, they let the inmates run the election, and they are actively involved. And you can imagine you have a pretty captive audience behind bars. I bet they read that whole pamphlet, and I would be, in my opinion, but there are probably more liberal voters in the prison system than there are.
You'd be surprised. There's a huge white supremacist contingent within our prison systems that is extremely pro-Trump.
I still think that people that are incarcerated deserve a voice, and I think that it's really important that if we're going to get change in this country, we have to try to increase the voter output.
I agree, Joe.
One way of doing that.
Yeah,
and
great
I
idea.
If, other people could reach out to their state representatives and discuss that. Maybe we could get the ball rolling.
Right. You can also reach out to your local prisons and offer to volunteer. It's fascinating. Thank you, Joe. Great idea. Appreciate it. It's, we're hitting the bottom of the hour, 27 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Defending America from the weapons of mass deception. I'll be right back with your calls. Nate? Okay. And black rebellion since the 1960s. I'm reading from the introduction. On a cold Monday at the start of February, Joseph McNeil, Franklin McCain, Ezell Blair Jr., and David Richmond sat down at a whites-only lunch counter at Woolworth's in Greensboro, North Carolina. A waiter refused to serve the young men and suggested they order takeout instead. The four North Carolina A&T students remained at the counter. The store manager approached and asked them to leave. Still, they did not move. A police officer arrived, slapping his nightstick in his hand in an attempt to intimidate. Rather than allow the students' offense against Jim Crow to continue, the manager of the store closed the store for the day. 24 black students returned on Tuesday. Over 50 black students and 3 white students participated in the sit-in on the next day, Wednesday, February 3rd, 1960. News of the protests spread, and soon the sit-in movement had expanded to 55 cities and 13 states. By April, over 50,000 students were involved. Conceived and organized entirely by young people, the sit-in movement ultimately led to the founding of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, which was run by activists such as John Lewis and Stokely Carmichael. As a Fisk student, Lewis participated in the sit-ins in Nashville, Tennessee, and he would go on to steer the Freedom Riders in the summer of 1961 and speak at the March on Washington in 1963. Carmichael joined the sit-in movement as a high school student and would famously call for Black Power at the SNCC rally in Greenwood, Mississippi in 1966. Together, Lewis, Carmichael, and tens of thousands of other young black Americans signaled that their generation was prepared to risk their lives for freedom and equality. From Greensboro onward, the sit-ins helped build momentum and support for racial justice. The students in Greensboro engaged in a nonviolent protest to demand full integration, the right to vote, equal educational opportunities, decent jobs, protection against white supremacist terrorism, and an end to police violence. These were the central aims of the civil rights movement more broadly. By the end of the decade, black students at North Carolina A&T State University were still protesting, but now they were destroying property, assaulting police officers, and shooting in the direction of law enforcement, if not coming close to killing cops in self-defense. In May 1969, after black students at Greensboro's James B. Dudley High School were arrested, brutalized, and tear gassed by police during a series of protests against arbitrary disciplinary measures, A&T students came to the teenagers' defense. The confrontations between local police and black high school and college students led authorities to call the National Guard to A&T's campus, unleashing violence and repression that ended in the killing of sophomore Willie Grimes. A pivotal stop on the road to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, by the end of the decade, Greensboro was a site of sustained violence. It was far from unique in this regard. Between 1964 and 1972, but especially between 68 and 72, the United States endured internal violence on a scale not seen since the Civil War. Every major urban center in the country burned during those 8 years. Violence flared up not only in archetypal ghettos, including Harlem and Watts, and in majority black cities such as Detroit and Washington, D.C. It appeared in Greensboro, North Carolina, in Gary, Indiana, in Seattle, Washington, and countless places in between. Every city, small or large, where black residents lived in segregated, unequal conditions. In the North and the South, the East and the West, the Rust Belt and the Sun Belt, black people threw rocks and bottles at police, shot at them with rifles, smashed the windows of businesses and institutions, hurled firebombs, and plundered local stores. These events, what we commonly call riots, or what people who are to the left of center sometimes refer to as civil disturbances, caused hundreds of millions of dollars of property damage. Most immediately, they shaped the lives of the store owners whose businesses were destroyed, of the parents who lost their teenage sons to the police, and of the firefighters and cops who were harmed or killed. But ever since, Americans have been living in a nation and a national culture created in part by the extreme violence of the 1960s has been felt more regularly and more acutely by black people in American cities who faced new policing practices that emerged under the banner of the war on crime. The routine stop and frisks that attacked people's dignity, the breaking up of community gatherings, the presence of armed, uniformed officers in the hallways of under-resourced public schools, and more. Such strategies help repress mass violence as a regular phenomenon, but they ironically made further riots inevitable. Those strategies remain in place today. The book, America on Fire. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com. So back in 1933, when Franklin Roosevelt became president, we were in the depths of the Great Depression. He raised the top income tax rate on billionaires from 25% to 90%. The ultra-rich were screaming, and here's what he had to say.
A number of my friends who belong in the very high upper bracket have suggested to me on several occasions of late that if I am re-elected president, they will have to move to some other nation because of high taxes here. Now, I will miss them very much.
He just took it right to them, right? Now, what came out of that was the world's largest and fastest growing and first major middle class. We can do this again. We just have to raise taxes on rich people. It's pretty straightforward. There's a whole article about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
Solid ground where facts were bricks and truth was sound, but now the tides have turned to lies, the truth drowned under darkened skies. A billion screens, a million tales spun from webs where reason fails. We're chasing shadows, losing sight of what's wrong and what's right. America's post-truth plunge, we're sinking deeper, voices hung. Who's to blame? Who holds the road when lies replace our only hope?
Welcome back. 36 minutes past the hour. It's Anything Goes Weekend. Picking up your calls on whatever's on your mind. John in Vancouver, Washington. Hey, John, what's up?
Oh, I am doing all right, but I had a really nasty nightmare last night that America was being attacked. I think it was the sound of the big trucks and snowplows going by me while I was sleeping. Needless to say, I woke up, it was hard to get back to sleep, and I started thinking, well, what can we really do? And I've heard everybody calling about boycott this, or we need to have a national strike day, and like our leaders are not feckless, they just don't have the power to do anything. So I got to think, what can we do? Now, I looked at the size of all those protests, state capitals and stuff over the weekend, or just Wednesday. It was Wednesday.
Right. Mostly on Wednesday.
We got
There was some on Tuesday.
Yeah, but I think we need to repeat that, but switch locations. Shut down all Tesla production facilities, all SpaceX facilities, any building that houses any offices for Twitter, and maybe shut down a few Amazon distribution centers.
Yeah, those are all private property, John. You have
you have access roads that go to them that you can shut down that are public property.
Yeah.
I thought about that. You can't get on the facility, but you can certainly, instead of just like shutting down a freeway, you can shut down the road that goes there.
I get it. I have a feeling that the heavy hand would come down on you pretty quickly. I get what you're saying, John.
Yeah, you're going to get arrested.
This tactic has been used in other venues. You're going to get arrested. If you're willing to get arrested, okay. John, thanks for the idea. Mike in Chicago. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Hey, Tom, how you doing? Let me get you off speaker.
Thank you.
So I don't drive everybody nuts listening to it. If I can get you to pop up.
Yeah, I'm here.
A couple of comments. I was listening to the gentleman that called earlier. He was talking about contacting the NFL. I did try that the other day, and I don't know where he wound up, but the number for the NFL takes you to information about their revenue sources. If you're having trouble on Amazon, if you're having trouble on any particular program, if your bill's not right, there is no customer comment section.
Really?
They're just looking at making money. So what I did, and what I would suggest, is what a lot of pressure has been put on different businesses over the years, start going after their advertisers, which is what identified who all the advertisers that I could find for the Super Bowl, and certainly I didn't get all of them. There's got to be more than the 8 or 10 that I found, and send something off to their customer service departments and tell them that you're not going to support their products if they support what the NFL did by taking a good and worthy message out of the end zone. It's childish and it's foolish and it's silly, but they did it because of the guy that's attending who's childish and foolish and silly.
Yeah, I get it.
So by going after them, the thing that I originally wanted to call you about, there's not a lot that I know that I can do at this point. I've been doing this for years, though, and I certainly have stepped it up in the past couple of weeks. I've been sending something to my elected representatives through email. Both of my senators and my rep. I don't think that they actually sit down and hard read everything that you're sending them. I'm sure they're sorting it out by the subject that it goes into.
No, they have interns who do that. And then they compile basically spreadsheets saying we got this number of comments about this and this number of comments about that.
Yep, but if they're not getting the comments, they're able to ignore the fact that things are the way they are, and they're not held liable to the populace. I think it's something that you can do, and literally to contact you write to the first one, copy and paste the message from the first one into the other two, and it takes me less than 10-15 minutes, and I've done it. There's been days that I've done it a couple of times where something's gotten stuck in my craw.
Yeah.
One other thing. Too many people that I know continue to claim that they can't find good news. And I think that there's bad news that's out there, and I think it's very easy to identify. But even when you listen to a source that you think is good news, and I consider myself somebody that's pretty picky about the stuff that I put into my brain, if you aren't looking at something with a jaundiced eye, a modicum of suspicion all the time, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. And it doesn't take a lot of work to go out and research what somebody says to you if you're questioning it. Too many people want to be spoon-fed what we're perceiving as news now. Yeah. And it's not news. It winds up being propaganda. And once you've done this a few times, it doesn't take a lot of effort to look at those same places that you vetted out the information. And sometimes it might just be a case that somebody wasn't trying to put a misleading item into a news story. It might just be that the timeliness of it hasn't caught up, and that you're able to look at something and say, oh, but we know more information now. That doesn't make it wrong. That just gives you the satisfaction of knowing that you're putting things into your brain that are of the best quality.
Yep. I get it. Mike, thank you for that.
Hey, one last thing really quick. I didn't know this. I love to cook. In fact, I'm making some chili right now. I didn't know this until the other day. You can freeze eggs.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
They're good for up to a year. People can find it out online. They tell you to put them into an ice cube tray. An ice cube tray will not hold an egg, a large egg.
Yeah.
But you can use a cupcake tin lined with plastic and then wrap them up, freeze them, throw them through the vacuum sealer. And if you get a deal on eggs, you've got eggs that'll last you for a year.
Fascinating. Okay, Mike, thanks a lot. Howard in Orange County, California. Hey, Howard, what's on your mind today?
Hey, bud. I'm predicting we're going to suffer terrorist attacks in this country.
As a result of Trump's proposal about Gaza?
No, just because all of the agencies that protect us have been decapitated, and their staff, their employees have been purged, and the whole world is watching us and they know that we are almost unprotected now. So the pardon studies do it domestically, and organizations in other countries that don't like us will be here.
Yeah. I get it, Howard. I get it. And now that Pam Bondi has shut down the foreign influence working group or project or whatever it's called over at the Justice Department at the FBI, you know, we've kind of blinded ourselves, and that doesn't seem to me like a good idea at all. Say what?
Yeah, the whole world knows what's going on here.
Yeah.
And they're going to take advantage of it.
I think you probably are right. Howard, thank you for the call. It's 44 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Speaking the truth, Donald Trump and Elon Musk would really rather you didn't know all about. I'll be right back with you. And welcome back. Katie in Hamul, California. Hey, Katie, what's up?
Hamul, that's what it is. Hi, Tom. Just really quickly, I might be among the few people that doesn't know this, but I learned this from my son, who pretty much runs an NGO in Australia for conservation resource studies or terrestrial and marine studies. And we were texting, my daughter and he and I, about this, what's going on here. And he said that his good friend who runs runs an NGO with Ocean Conservancy, is I believe its name. They absolutely rely on USAID funds. And so I felt really caught out, since that's been around since I was young. And I thought it was just for the horrible, tragic pictures that we see of starving people and bags of food. But apparently, and I looked it up, it does a lot more than that. So they're getting a 2 for, 5 for, or 10 for when they get rid of USAID, because of I did verify it. They fund climate change studies.
Yep.
So how good is that for them? And it's terrible. Again, our son is not funded by U.S. money, but his organization. But did you know that? I mean, you probably did.
I knew that they did a lot of different things all over the world. When I worked in Uganda and Africa, we got our organization didn't, but I saw USAID all over the place. I mean, they were feeding people in Darfur when I was there.
Climate change, because it's just like nothing's going to happen without unless we. And so I thought that was tragic. And then the other thing, really quickly, is that my ex-brother-in-law, that has been really good scientist, but he, for decades, he got his PhD in what we used to call ecology in 1970, and he was funded. He was getting grants from NOAA throughout his career.
Sure.
And so there you go again. And so, I mean, that one is not such a surprise, except on the news, they say, oh, these are the people that bring us weather reform. And I'm going, no, they're foundational for climate change study.
Right. Which is why they're going after them. The fossil fuel billionaires don't like that.
Pardon?
Which is why they're going after them. The fossil fuel billionaires who fund the Republican Party do not like anybody investigating or publicizing or working
the reporting needs to show that it's not just quote unquote weather,
right.
And it sort of seems to be what I've been hearing. So that's all I had to say. And maybe people are all informed about this and about USAID supporting climate research, but it really hit home with me because of our son. And so I just am throwing it out there. It's not just starving people.
Yeah.
it's, so many other things.
And let's not forget, USAID had opened an investigation into Elon Musk, and that's now gone.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, he would have gotten rid of it anyway, but now he had that extra, fire in his belly to punish his, use his extra cruel self.
I think you're right, Katie.
So there you go.
Katie, thank you for the call. It's 48 and a half minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds. Stay with us. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us.
It starts with a spark, a fire in the night, a lie that's told to dim the light. Fear spreads fast and truth takes flight while shadows grow, feeding on fright. Emergency, strip away your voice, twist the laws, give you no choice. From fear and hate, they build their stage, unleashing monsters fueled by rage. The playbook's old, but the scars are new. History echoes, we've seen this through. With every word, they cast their spell, a spiral down, a path to hell. This is Trump's monster playbook, written in deceit, turning neighbors into foes on every street. When fear becomes the weapon and truth is overthrown, the monster takes the throne and we're left alone.
Welcome back. 10 minutes before the hour, picking up your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. Alfredo in Mountain View, California. Hey, Alfredo, what's up?
Hey, Tom, thank you for taking my call. So, Elon Musk has compromised our national security, in my opinion. This is a guy who is in touch with Putin almost on a daily basis.
Well, we don't know that, Alfredo. He apparently has been in contact with him over the last couple of years, according to published reports. But on a daily basis, where do you get that?
Well, you're right. Maybe I'm exaggerating. But my point is this. Now he has basically crashed into the Treasury Department, and he has access to basically all this sensitive information or Social Security and all private information. Who's to say he's not going to hand this information to Putin and his trolls to hack all these federal agencies, including our personal data?
Well, this is my concern about all the federal payroll records. That includes all our spies.
Well, yeah, I'm absolutely terrified. And another observation is this. All the protests that I have seen so far, I have not seen a single Trumpist or a MAGA protester countering this protest.
No, there have been no counter-protests, which is pretty weird, actually.
Interesting. Very interesting, yeah. So, okay, that was my comment.
I wonder if the MAGA people are as freaked out as we are. Apparently not. I mean, from what I heard from this talk show host this morning on CNN, a conservative out of Iowa, but who knows? Alfredo, thank you. Brian in Minneapolis. Hey, Brian, what's on your mind today?
Tom, there needs to be a moratorium on foreclosures and evictions. And this applies to all financial institutions. And if a person's mortgage or loan or rent was current on February 1st, 2025, it would be protected.
Why is that?
Pardon?
Why?
Well, as you said, these oligarchs are sitting. If Trump and Musk are successful in confiscating the U.S. Treasury, then all these properties and stuff, people's cash flows are going to get interrupted. They're going to lose. They're going to be delinquent on mortgages. They're going to be on rent. And as you said about a week ago, the oligarchs are waiting to crash this economy, and they'll buy the whole works. This is exactly what happened in the 1980s in the farm crisis.
Yep. Yeah, Reagan had two major recessions during his 8 years, and And, you know, Republicans just love to have recessions because it really helps out the donor class.
Right. And these, with 66 million people receiving Social Security benefits, and 40% of those 66 million, that's their only source of income.
Yeah. Yeah. It's grim stuff.
They're
And they're in the Social Security
evicted.
Administration right now. Trump's teenage kids are hackers are in the Social Security Administration today. So, and they got into Medicare yesterday. So get ready and keep track of your benefits. Brian, thank you. Earl in Hyde Park, Illinois. Hey, Earl, what's up?
Hey, Tom. I try to listen to more than one news broadcast and one channel, and I try to surf the information stream out there. Mm-hmm. And I'm constantly amazed how these Republican elected officials fornicate over Trump.
Yeah.
He's
doing the things that Republicans 20 years ago were accusing Democrats of wanting to do. You know, that they want to be autocrats. They want to suck up to our enemies. They like the Soviet Union, all that kind of stuff. Trump is doing the stuff Republicans used to freak out about. He's exposing our secrets. He's weakening our national security. That's what they used to say about Bill Clinton.
And there is not a one of them that has gumption past January 7th to say anything negative about Trump.
Yeah.
Anything negative
they're
about
terrified of
him. And I don't know how you can justify this fornication when you wouldn't raise your children this way. You wouldn't tolerate this from your neighbors.
Yeah.
But they'll go on TV, they'll get in front of a microphone and profess their love for this man who has no scruples.
Just like the Conservative Party did in Germany with Hitler in 1933. Oh, yeah, he's a little eccentric, but we can work with him, and he's really kind of on our side, and we need to be paying attention. No, I agree with you, Earl. Earl, thank you so much. Jerry in Tampa, Florida. Hey, Jerry, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Going back to October of 2023, Hamas attacks Israel. Hamas has been wanting the Palestinians out of the Gaza Strip for I don't know how long, but they have been.
Why?
They know that that's just my theory, that they know that by attacking Israel, they know that they can goad Israel into attacking them, and they know that they're embedded in the Gaza Strip, and they're going to consider the Palestinians to be collateral damage. And of course, in my mind, Netanyahu doesn't care about the Palestinians either. No. And we got sucked into it, of course, because we're an ally of them. Yeah. Is there anything I'm missing here?
No, I think right. You've got it. I don't think that Hamas expected the ferocity of Israel's response. I don't think in their wildest dreams they thought that Netanyahu would destroy 90% of all the buildings in Gaza and kill 50,000 people. But, he did. And here we are. So
they didn't count on us. They didn't count on us being an ally of theirs and that we would support them.
Yeah. No, I get it. Jerry, thank you for the call. We're hitting the top of the hour. I'll be back with you with more of your calls here and more of the news of the day on the other side of this break. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Our book club book for today is Talk Radio's America by Brian Rosenwald, subtitled How an Industry Took Over a Political Party That Then Took Over the United States. This is from the introduction. August 1, 1988 marked the beginning of the long road to President Donald Trump. But even political junkies took little notice of the fateful events that unfolded that day as a failed disc jockey and former Kansas City Royals executive named Rush Hudson Limbaugh III made his national radio debut. Only a small audience tuned in. So poorly commemorated was the moment that we don't even know how many stations broadcast day one of Limbaugh's syndicated program. Limbaugh claims the show began on 56 affiliates, while other counts range from 57 and 87. From the beginning, the show was brash, entertaining, controversial, and boundary-pushing. Before Limbaugh, this sort of programming did not exist outside major cities. In 1983, there were just 59 talk radio stations nationwide, and the program on many of those stations consisted of advice shows, staged interviews, and caller-driven discussions of everything from neighborhood schools to abominable snowmen. Most talk radio programming focused on local concerns, and most of the industry's stars, such as Larry King and Sally Jesse Raphael, had left-of-center views but rarely shared them. At the time of Limbaugh's national debut, talk radio had negligible political impact. In talk radio hotbeds such as Boston, hosts might influence local and statewide policy debates, especially on visceral issues such as seatbelt laws, but talk radio was not a partisan force, and it had no role in national politics. In fact, the wall-to-wall conservative political talk stations that dominate the AM airwaves today were impossible until 1987, thanks to a regulation called the Fairness Doctrine. That year, however, the Federal Communications Commission eliminated the policy, which required broadcasters of opinionated programming on controversial issues to offer an array of viewpoints. In this more permissive environment, Limbaugh would go on to revolutionize the radio business. In doing so, he helped unintentionally to spawn a major new political player. Within a decade, the broadcast format he inaugurated aired on more than 1,000 stations and kept millions company as they commuted, worked, and shouted back at their radios. It took just a few years before conservative talk radio began to influence national politics and public policy. That influence only grew throughout the decades as the business changed. Over the course of the 1990s and early 2000s, the number of nationally syndicated talk shows rose dramatically, and the content of talk radio programs became increasingly political and conservative. Liberal pundits and some scholars agree on the broad outlines of the story. Conservative station executives, conspiring with their Republican allies, built a format modeled on Limbaugh's program, and thousands of Limbaugh wannabes cropped up all over the country. Executives, hosts, and politicians turned talk radio into an appendage of the Republican Party, using the platform to get Republicans elected and advance the party's agenda. The success of talk radio led to the development of partisan and ideological cable news networks, and some hosts complemented their radio shows with primetime cable programs. Eventually, this content found a home in the new digital sphere, with equally strident cheerleaders proliferating on blogs and other online publications. This narrative makes sense, especially to liberals. After all, many conservative media executives and their corporate political action committees donate to Republican candidates, and most hosts champion conservative candidates and causes. But this narrative is wrong. In reality, the story of talk radio's emergence as a popular conservative format and the impact it had on American politics weaves together two, But this narrative is wrong. In reality, the story of talk radio's emergence as a popular conservative format and the impact it had on American politics weaves together two distinct, complex tales. Neither has anything to do with the conspiracy to create a media servant of the Republican Party. The first describes how talk radio spread across America, in the process saving AM radio from financial ruin. Limbaugh had no intention of affecting elections or legislation, and no inkling that he could. Nor did any of his early successors. The executives who gave these hosts a chance also had no interest in political outcomes. Hosts and their bosses were in business. They wanted to captivate listeners and make money, and they discovered, essentially by accident, that conservative political talk in the mouth of an entertaining personality achieved this. Conservative hosts had strong opinions, but their primary goal was, and still is, financial gain. And it is because they realized financial gain that more and more stations invested in their style and content while divesting from competing formats. The second story concerns talk radio's transformation after 1995 into an almost entirely conservative and doctrinaire medium that eventually spawned successors in other media, took over the Republican Party, and reshaped it in hosts' and listeners' image. Limbaugh was a great innovator, but he didn't change American media and politics all at once or on his own. In conservative talk radio's early days, hosts shared stations with liberal talkers and apolitical programs. There was not an immediate sense that conservative radio was the future either. But gradually, its success snowballed thanks to trial and error in the radio business, regulatory changes, political events, happenstance, and most importantly, listener behavior. Hosts also got a boost from marginalized conservative Republican politicians who realized that talk radio would enable them to circumnavigate the mainstream media, and deliver their message directly to voters. The book, Talk Radio's America.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome to the third hour of our program on Anything Goes Weekend. Just a few news stories for you, and then I'll pick up your calls. Just causing havoc. States are trying to build EV charging networks, and the federal government, as part of the, that massive infrastructure bill that was bipartisan, by the way, Joe Biden got it through, but with Republican votes as well as Democratic votes, because frankly, much, if not most, of the money is going to red states. But it included $6 billion to build charging networks across the country, about $3.5, $4 billion of that for the public highway systems, the federal highway systems, interstate highway systems, and $2.5, $3 billion of that for towns, communities, counties, whatever. And this from the Washington Post. States trying to build a network of EV chargers are reeling after the Trump administration abruptly ordered a halt to a $5 billion program to build the chargers on highways nationwide. In the memo released Thursday, the Federal Highway Administration ordered states to halt the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. Just 55 charging stations have built so far. The reason why is you have to go through a permitting process, approval process. You got to find the land. You got to bring the electricity in. I mean, it's a complicated thing to build a charging network. The Vermont Agency of Transportation, for example, has already awarded 11 projects for 60 charging ports, but all of those now are going on hold. Congress approved this under the bipartisan bill, as I mentioned. It provided another $2.5 billion for chargers in communities and neighborhoods. So I had my numbers wrong. It's $2.5 billion for communities, $5 billion for the federal highways. And even states that have approved plans do not have the money in hand, notes the Washington Post. As part of the program, they send invoices to the federal government after meeting key milestones. Now, who's going to benefit from this? Well, let's see. Who has the largest electric vehicle charging network in the United States? Oh, yeah, that would be Tesla. And they make money on them. They sell their electricity electricity at a whole, at least actually, I don't know the exact markup. I'm guessing it's well over 100%, but they're making money selling electricity, just like gas stations make money selling gasoline. So Elon Musk wins again. Speaking of whom, he just called for the Wall Street Journal to fire one of their reporters, a woman named Catherine Long. Why? Because she's the one who uncovered the social media posts by his 25-year-old kid who said, and I quote, "Just for the record, I was racist before it was cool. You cannot pay me to marry outside of my ethnicity and normalize Indian hate." So, she exposes this. This kid has to resign, and then Musk says she's a disgusting and cruel person and calls for her to be fired. And then this right-wing influencer says, woke journalist Catherine Long, who doxed dodgy staffer, has ties to USAID. And Musk replies saying she should be fired immediately. This is kind of ironic given that Elon Musk positions himself as an absolutist on free speech. People should be able to say whatever they want. Apparently, as long as it's, hey, I was racist before it was cool. Speaking of fired immediately, Donald Trump also called for that this morning. I'm telling you, they're coming after the press. I don't know how long it's going to be before they come after me. But here it is. Eugene Robinson was on Morning Joe, and they brought up the topic of USAID, and Eugene Robinson was talking about all the good that USAID does around the world and how it strengthens America's position around the world and how it infuriates Vladimir Putin and President Xi of China. As I mentioned earlier, China has spent over $1 trillion competing with USAID, and USAID has an annual budget of around $35 billion. So we're getting incredible bang for our buck. And China is paying a fortune to compete with us. Well, they don't have to worry about competing with us anymore. They're going to start picking up these countries that have been dependent on US aid and bringing them into their sphere of influence. But anyhow, Trump immediately, when he sees this program with Eugene Robinson on Morning Joe, he goes to his Truth Social platform and says, he says, Eugene Robinson of the Washington Post is incompetent. So sad to see him trying to justify the waste, fraud, and corruption at USAID with the pathetic radical left spin. He should be fired immediately! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Yeah, right. We're all in favor of a free press here, aren't we? Apparently not. Meanwhile, Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor yesterday doubled down on her opposition to this presidential immunity thing. She said, if we as a court could go much further ahead of the American people, our legitimacy is going to be questioned. I think the immunity case is one of those situations, she said. I don't think Americans have accepted that anyone should be above the law in America. Our equality as people was the foundation of our society and our Constitution. I think my court, the Supreme Court, would probably gather more public support if it went a little more slowly in undoing precedent. It's incredible. She goes on, she says, our Constitution itself has provisions not exempting the president from criminal activity after an impeachment. So I had a hard time with the immunity case, and if we continue going in directions the public is going to find hard to understand, we're placing the court at risk. Gee, do you think? Right-wingers. And finally, this is in Arizona. Republican legislators in Arizona are pushing a piece of legislation that would let their county clerks refuse to certify elections for basically any reason. The bill, it's House Bill 440 in Arizona, says that it would, quote, allow supervisors to avoid legal liability for balking at certification if they have any documentation or other evidence that suggests potential irregularities or errors in the election process, including not just official reports, but also sworn affidavits and expert testimony. So in theory, any old random person could simply submit a sworn statement saying, I believe there's fraud, and the county clerk could say, I'm not going to certify this election, and that throws the entire state's results into the crapper, particularly if it's a county clerk in a blue county. I mean, we know how that's going to work, right? Oh, my. Okay, well, it's Anything Goes Weekend. What's on your mind today? John in North Chelmsford, Massachusetts. Hey, John, thanks for listening to WCAP. What's up?
Hey, Tom. Hey, you got North Chelmsford right.
I think
let's see,
I've been there.
Just a couple of things. I'm really ripping about what they're doing with NOAA, with the weather stuff, because a lot of MAGA people live along the coasts. They live in Twister country and all that. And when those sirens go off, you know something bad's coming.
Yep.
And if that's eliminated, you know, what are they going to do?
Well, their theory is that if they kill off NOAA, then private companies, you know, AccuWeather and Weather.com and whatnot will step up and fill in. But I don't think they have the resources to really do the job right. And this, you know, the weather is something that should be part of the commons. It should be something, you know, understanding the weather, knowing what's going on. But apparently NOAA was also, you know, tracking climate change. God forbid. So here we are.
Oh, my God. Oh, yeah. God forbid on that. And then another thing, the FCC, on the ham bands, there's a couple, I call them garbage frequencies. And all they're doing is these MAGA people screaming and yelling, and the FCC seems like unable to stop them. And, you know, but if, you know, you or I were to say something, whoa, you know.
What do you mean? You mean ham operators who are just talking politics, which is considered bad form but is not illegal? Or are you talking about people running pirate stations?
They don't give call letters.
I heard there was one at 7.2 megahertz on the 40-meter band.
That's the one.
Huh.
That's the one. And it's like 24/7, you know, swearing, screaming, yelling.
Do you know where that station is located?
There's a whole bunch of them. They're nationwide.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And I mean, these people may not even have amateur radio licenses, John.
I would hope that they don't, but at the same time, you know, the FCC spends its, and I know it's because of money, they spend their time going after FM pirate stations.
Yeah.
Because that's where the big money, I guess, is. But
well, that's where,
you know,
it's
just.
Yeah, go
ahead.
ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm just saying that other people can get away with this crap, and I just don't know. I'm just disgusted with everything that's going on right now.
Yeah, I get it. Are you a ham, John?
Oh yeah.
What bands do you work?
Oh geez, 40, 20, 10, wherever I can hear somebody.
Me too. Although
I know.
My solar array has kind of screwed up my reception right now, so I got to figure out what to do about that. But John, thanks for the call. It's good talking to you.
Okay.
73.
Okay, 73.
Yep. See you later. 16 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
All right, back with more of your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. Stay with us. Welcome back. Michael in Princeton, Minnesota. Hey, Michael, what's on your mind today?
I got a lot of things. First of all, in Europe, the various countries have dropped the sales of Tesla by anywhere from 40 to 60%.
Right, and they're down in the U.S. too.
Yeah.
But they're apparently selling really well in China. I mean, they make more than half of their cars in China.
Yeah. And another thing, I called the Congress people and asked them, I said, you guys want to keep cutting the government and all this lawlessness going on. What happens if the American public quits paying their taxes?
Yeah.
You know, some people that got children increase the amount of deductions. Like me, I get Social Security and 3 union checks coming in every month. One of them, I pay my taxes. I could turn around and cancel that. And who's going to come and get me?
Well, the IRS will.
You know, they're not. They're cutting IRS.
Well, they're cutting the people out of IRS who audit the wealthy people. They're not going to get rid of the people at IRS who audit people like you and me. It ain't going to happen.
Well, and another thing I told the Congress people that I've been calling in Washington, I keep telling them, you know, individually you guys can't take on Trump, but I said, as en masse, you sure as hell could.
Yeah.
I said, why don't you guys stick together and get rid of him?
Yeah. There's a lot of us wondering that.
And like Tom Tillis's phone, you turn around and call there. They say, well, let me give you to a line that you can leave a message. And the line goes blank. They're not taking nothing.
Yeah.
But I figured I'd call them and ask them about this whole deal about not paying taxes, too, and get them thinking anyway.
Michael, I like the way you think. Thank you. Good talking to you. Ramon in Loveville, Maryland. Hey, Ramon, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, I got one thing. Musk is a bigger problem than Trump. And the reason why is that his 17 to 20-something-year-old uncleared hackers, they're not, crack auditors. They're hackers. There's no other
well, one of them actually is part of a hacking collective that includes guys who have been convicted of hacking and a guy who was hacking for the Russians. By the way, Ramon, I need you to get your mouth closer to the microphone. It sounds like you're talking to us from the bottom of a hole or from your bathroom. Just put the microphone near your mouth. That's all you have to do. You don't have to take me off speaker.
Well, I have the headset on, so let me go to that.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Me being a career IT person, retired, one thing we avoid is single point of failure. And what these hackers are doing is delivering the keys behind firewalls for every major government agency to the point where one man, Musk, controls the government, all the paychecks, all the programs, all the military pay and programs that are going out there, even the coast to where the nuclear bombs are located, everything. He doesn't need Trump anymore. And he's one man. He could liquidate this company like he tried to do with Twitter and divide us up amongst the 5 or 10 families that are wealthy by sector. And Trump, nor the Congress or anything, can do anything about it because he'll just shut off the servers.
Yeah, he went after the FAA administrator because he was investigating Musk. He went after USAID because they were investigating Musk. But he's not going after the Department of Defense because they write checks to Musk. So, yeah, I think you're right, Ramon. I think he is the most powerful man in America right now. Thank you. It's 20 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds. Stay with us. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So what do we call the really, really mind-bogglingly rich? At the founding of the Republic, they were referred to as speculators or moneyed interest or aristocrats. In the years leading up to the Civil War, we called them the cotton lords and the plantation aristocracy. In the late 19th century, they were the robber barons. In the 1930s, FDR called them the economic royalists. But since the Reagan Revolution, we've just called them billionaires. And now, some of them want to call themselves tech bros. Like, that's kind of a good thing, like tech is positive and bros, like Mark Zuckerberg saying we need more masculine energy in American business culture. So we need a new phrase. I would like to suggest the morbidly rich. Morbidly suggests unhealthy. And the vast riches that some of these people have is unhealthy to our democracy, particularly since 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court said that morbidly rich people can buy politicians. And it's unhealthy for them, too. So morbidly rich. There's an op-ed over at HartmannReport.com all about it. Check it out.
They're the ones who hold the power, counting dollars by the hour. They twist the truth and bend the rules, while they laugh at the rest of us fools. What do you call a class so bold, with hearts of stone and hands of gold? They've got a name that fits the pitch. Let's call them all the morbidly rich.
22 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. It's Anything Goes Weekend. What's on your mind? CJ in Shreveport, Louisiana. Hey, CJ, what's up?
Hey, something an earlier caller said about the NOAA and the Sharpie map, hurricane map.
Right.
That's my speculation, and I think it's reasonable.
Oh, you think
that,
Trump is going after NOAA, or Musk is going after NOAA because Trump's pissed off about their contradicting him on that hurricane?
Yeah, but here's why he did what he did, I think. The word Alabama is a reasonable autocorrect substitution for the word Bahamas. A lot of consonants and A's in common there.
Sure.
I think he meant to type Bahamas, tweet Bahamas. It came out Alabama, and his malignant narcissism wouldn't let him admit that. So he altered the weather map. And because of that autocorrect error, we're now going to lose NOAA.
Well, that's a possibility. I mean, it hadn't occurred to me. But yeah, interesting theory, CJ. Thanks for calling and sharing that with us. That's fascinating.
Okay.
Yeah, good talking to you. Larry in Los Angeles. Hey, Larry, what's up?
Hey, well, we can go back to the old days and just call them the dirty, rotten, filthy, stinking rich.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree. Although
anyway,
I like morbidly rich. I mean, morbidly in medicine means, associated with death or disability, and I think that's true.
Anyway, it's Jobs Friday.
Yeah, you're right.
And Joe Biden made it through this far, still beating Reagan, Bush, and Trump. And as I was looking at the numbers, after Trump became president, somebody went in there and started fixing Trump's bad numbers because he had lost about 300,000 jobs in December, his last 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's down to under 200,000.
Well, they're constantly correcting those numbers, Larry.
Yeah, but that happened just in the last couple of weeks.
Oh, really? Rather than 4 years ago?
Yeah. Well, 2 years ago, they knocked it down from over 300,000 to 200,000. I said, okay, they make revisions. But just in the last couple of weeks, they knocked another 100,000 off.
Huh. Amazing.
And so we have this situation where Joe Biden, the greatest first-term president of all time when it comes to jobs, he's the only guy that didn't get a second term. He's also the only guy who didn't get a recession and didn't get a second term after he kept the economy going strong.
Yeah.
So we have this situation where, as I told you a couple of weeks ago, I was going to go to the FBI and tell them that they're not just in our records. Somebody is manipulating the Dow. I still see that that's happening, and I'm planning on going to the FBI office in L.A., and I'm going to write a report and put it in their hands. Even though this is Donald Trump's FBI right now, I'm not done with them. I'm not afraid of them. I'm still going after them.
So do you think it's just a bunch of billionaires who are manipulating the Dow by buying and selling in ways that work to their benefit?
Actually, I think it's Colin. I think it's Powell. Excuse me, not Colin, but I think it's
Jerome Powell.
Jerome Powell.
Yeah.
It may be some of the billionaires are in with him doing that, because when you talk about how much tax cuts that the billionaires get, you should always try to include the fact that they also got billions and actually trillions of dollars from Powell in quantitative easing.
Right.
And we need to let the American people know that was actually deficit spending. It just wasn't done by Trump. It was
It wasn't done by the Treasury. It was done by the Fed.
Yeah. And then when Biden became president, again, they took $200 billion out of the stock market for Biden.
Right.
Actually, $2 trillion out of the stock market for Biden.
Yeah.
So it's just a totally unfair situation that we're living in right now. And they're cooking the books on everything. And I think they're so happy they got AI.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me. Larry, thank you. Thanks for the call. It's always good to hear from you. Appreciate it. 27 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. What's on your mind? Stick around.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's your media support group for We the People. We'll be right back with your calls.
Our book for today on the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Kingdom of Lies, Unnerving Adventures in the World of Cybercrime by Kate Fazzini. This is from the preface. It didn't take me long in my career as a cybersecurity executive to figure out everyone was lying to me. The biggest lie of all came at the very beginning, that cybersecurity is hard, too hard, certainly too difficult for someone who lacks years and years of deep technical training. That is no place for writers. That thicket of incomprehensible jargon alone seemed meant to discourage outsiders like me from entering the field. They told me I could never hope to understand the terminology unless I'd worked around it for a very long time, unless I had a special and complicated certification, unless I knew how to take apart and reassemble a computer, unless I knew how to code in Python and could read it, interpret it, and spot problems on sight. And if I somehow managed to learn the lingo, the learning curve for the rest of it would prove insurmountable. Lies, lies, lies. It's unfortunate because there's a huge gap between the demand for cybersecurity workers and the people available to fill those jobs. I think one of the reasons for that is because people can't imagine themselves doing this kind of work. Can you use a smartphone, make a PowerPoint, think on your feet? Ever organize a night out to the movies with your friends that went well and nobody crashed their car to or from the event? Welcome to the 21st century's hottest career path. Are you able to charm the pants off women? Did you escape an abusive marriage? Have you ever hosted a toddler's birthday party at your home? Honey, I want you on my cybersecurity team. After reading the stories in this book, you will understand that what makes cybersecurity complicated is the complexity of human beings. So if you know how to deal with people, you can handle internet security. If you understand what makes people tick, not only will you be able to recognize a threat, you'll be one step ahead of your adversary. During my career as a cybersecurity executive at multinational corporations, a journalist for Wall Street Journal and later CNBC, and a professor at Georgetown University, I've met a lot of fascinating people. From the hackers who perpetrate malicious attacks to the security professionals who try to prevent these incidents from happening, and the alphabet soup of government agencies that do damage control. At the end of the day, they're all fathers, sons, mothers, sisters, and spouses. In other words, people just like us. Yes, the white hats cross paths with black hats and change alliances more frequently than you might expect, but they're driven by the same desires as the rest of us, even if sometimes it feels as if everyone in cybersecurity is allergic to the truth. As a professional, I was told a great many lies about the field I've grown to love so much. After becoming a journalist on the cybersecurity beat, I was told even more. Here are a few. Let me introduce you to the hacker community. This lie is usually delivered with a wink and a nod from someone who thinks they know every hacker on the planet. The truth of the matter is there is no hacker community. Sure, the guys who make a splash at the big annual conferences might say otherwise, but every country, every state, every faction, every identifying group has its own community of people who hack computers. Some of them are extremely conservative. Others are massively liberal. Some fall in between. Some wear suits and ties and work as lawyers during the day, while others look like everyday citizens and have great people skills as they pursue the idiosyncratic agendas. Some are good guys who got fed up with low pay and boring duties and became criminals. Some are criminals who ended up being good guys. Many start and end their careers on either end of that spectrum. Some, including many you'll meet in this book, are extremely proficient hackers who have no time or inclination to identify with any community at all. As a journalist, I was astonished at the number of people who came out of the woodwork to offer me exclusive access to the hacker community. I couldn't help but notice that the members of the source's hacker community were often people just like him or her. My point is there are many different types of people working in this field, and I can guarantee you that a lot of them are exactly like you. Here's another lie. He's a luminary in the cybersecurity field. He's probably not. Fame and luminescence don't typically intersect in this field. The people I've met who are actual geniuses aren't famous, and most of them don't have social media profiles. They tend not to pontificate on areas outside their expertise. The people who are constantly headlining conferences and who are so often offered up to me for interviews have less insight than those who stay underground. Anything a high-profile hacker is willing to share typically carries with it a massive and crystal clear agenda that I've learned to spot from a mile away. Even if a conversation is off the record, the intel coming from a top government official or other marquee corporate cybersecurity name carries little novel information. The only people who have illuminated the way for me in this world, and in this book, have been genuine practitioners who never held a C-level title. You've never heard of them, and because I've changed their names to protect their privacy, you probably never will. They are luminaries not because of the degrees they've collected or the events they've headlined, but because they carry a lantern that guides the path for others. These types of people typically don't have a public relations team. One of my favorite lies, he doesn't know what he's talking about. This one is usually delivered by someone who asserts that he or she knows the cybersecurity field better than anyone else. These people will brag that they know what it's like to be a hacker and can do things that no one else in the room can do. I'm always wary of those who try to establish their bona fides by discrediting the expertise of other cybersecurity professionals. The depth and breadth of this field is so vast that anyone who works in it is an expert at some part of it. And I have yet to meet someone who is an expert at all of it, not even close. Every view of an incident is informed by the reviewer, what he sees, what her level of expertise is, and that changes over time. It's like asking someone who lives in the plaza to describe Manhattan. The book is Kingdom of Lies by Kate Fazzini. Filled with pictures and
Help support progressive radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting progressive talk radio, and tag you're it. I have 8 suggestions for Democrats for messaging. Democrats seem to have a messaging problem right now. First, Democrats must frame the fight in simple moral terms. Don't be wonky like, hey, we need to expand social safety net. No, say no child in America should go to bed hungry. Second, Democrats need to stop playing defense and instead seize the populist high ground. Like when FDR said, they are unanimous in their hate for me and I welcome their hatred. Third, ruthlessly define the Republican opposition and the morbidly rich oligarchs who own them. Fourth, tell stories instead of facts. This is, Reagan did this with the black welfare queen. He had to lie about it, but we've got lots of great stories. That's number 4. There's 4 more, and they're all over at HartmannReport.com. The title of the article is, If Obama Had Sent a Mob to Kill a Cop, Republicans Would Never Let You Forget It. And it's all about how Democrats can reinvent their messaging to start winning elections big. Check it out.
They walk in suits, heads held high on private jets. They touch the sky. Big oil CEOs, their profits swell, while Earth descends into a fiery hell. Their hands hold fortunes, their hearts hold lies, ignoring the flux, the smoke-filled skies. They knew the risks, they knew the score, yet chose the profits and waged this war. The climate killer CEOs, with every deal the damage grows. They poison seas, they scorched the land and left destruction in their hands. The truth was clear, they turned away, and now the world begins to pay.
Welcome back. 36 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. Suzanne in Dublin, Ohio. Hey, Suzanne, what's up?
Yes. I hate to break the topics of what I love, the economics and politics, but I want to share this one fact that will help. It'll be a healthier option and alleviate the anxiety over the price of eggs. And that is, a good substitute for eggs is 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed into 3 tablespoons of warm water. And you can use it in cakes, pancakes, whatever. If you're hungry for a scrambled egg, you can do tofu vegetable scrambles. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, the flax seeds have a compound in them that is kind of gelatinous, and so it holds things together the way eggs do when you're baking. And Louise has been making scrambled tofu forever. I mean, we've been vegetarians for 50 years.
Wonderful.
And she puts turmeric and miso, or soy sauce rather. Not soy. What's it called? There's a gluten-free version. Tamari. Thank you. Yeah. She puts turmeric, which colors it, turns it yellow, and tamari in it, and sometimes she'll throw in other spices, a little bit of dill or something like that. It's just delicious. Delicious.
So I don't care if eggs go up to $50 a dozen, you
Yeah.
know, and you learn that little trick and you don't ever care about buying eggs again. Plus, it's healthier.
Yeah,
much
plus
healthier.
keeps your cholesterol down. So, yeah, I'm
Yes,
with you,
yes.
Suzanne, excuse me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Back
you.
to your other topics that are more interesting.
No, that's good stuff, too. And it's anything goes weekend. It's anything goes Friday. So, whatever you want to bring
Thank
up is
you.
fine with me. Suzanne, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Bob in Burlington, Vermont. Hey, Bob. Been a while since
Hey,
I've been
Tom,
in
how you
Burlington.
doing?
Used to spend a lot of time there. How's everything?
Yes, I used to get on the phone with Louise and invite you back, and just never happened, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm bringing up a dead horse on Anything Goes Friday. I noticed that with Trump doing all the tariff stuff, a lot of the talk show hosts were, distracted, I think, by that and not paying attention to the stuff that he was doing that now most of them are talking about, oh, it's unconstitutional. And I want to take the next step back because we've been getting a lot of stuff in the House anyway on Article 5. And it's sort of like the argument for the second step here, that it's unconstitutional for what they're doing. Article 5, if that comes to fruition and
This is have your very own constitutional convention article?
Yes. Convention of States. They're now putting out more. In my legislative mail the other day, I got a letter from them, and I suspect it went probably to every legislator in the country, that, this is our agenda. They're getting emboldened because, Trump is pushing things so hard, and it looks like a ripe time. But we even now have a bill in front of the legislature that is advocating that Vermont, of all places, signs on to this nonsense. I understand that Maine passed a resolution that it requires a 2/3 majority to actually do that approval, and we might go that way also. But this is still alive and kicking, and it'll be the end of things as we know it, I think, on all levels of being able to fight back.
They want to rewrite the Constitution to officially turn America into an oligarchy rather than simply do it by essentially fiat. And you can read all about it over at their website. It's conventionofstates.com, as I recall.
Yes, and even now, I mean, I'm a Democrat in a state that most of the Republicans wouldn't be allowed in the Democratic Party in the rest of the country. It's just like, hey, here you go. This is our agenda. This is what we'd like to do.
Yep.
And it's cloaked so much in the return power to the states thing, which is, basically reintroducing so much of the bad stuff that.
Well, it's like, let's take us back to the Articles of Confederation.
People. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think if you really want to jump off the edge of the cliff, moving all the auto production down to the south and all that deindustrialization of the north, the next time the Civil War comes along, who knows?
Yeah, I get it. Bob, thank you. Thank you for the call. It is a very important issue. Sarah in San Rafael, California. Hey, Sarah, what's on your mind today?
Hi, good morning, Prof. Basically, there's enough darkness going around for everybody, but I'm a little subset over here, below the immigrants and the anatomically corrected population. And I was just really appalled last night. One of my friends went on to Amazon because they have a pharmacy, and we're all trying to stock up on our meds before he clamps down on that. And in the application for the pharmacy on Amazon, they, when you choose your gender, they had this line that said, "What is your gender at birth?" I mean, whatever happened to HIPAA? I know Musk now has all our Social Security numbers, so it's very easy to identify us. And I know there was talk about cutting out Social Security to us and, passports, not being able to get them. Mine's in process, so I hope it goes through. But it's just like, this is really, it's not even just Nazi Germany. It's like Chinese Nazi Germany. It's just crazy.
I think HIPAA applies to pharmacies as well as to doctors' offices. I think your information is still protected.
But why should you have to tell that? What's your gender at birth? I mean, if you got everything else, it
why
should just
do they care?
Prescription.
Yeah,
right. You go to a pharmacy, they don't care.
Right. Yeah, that is a very good question. I have no idea. You'd have to ask Amazon, but You know, I've never had CVS ask me that, for example. I mean, I just take a prescription in and they say, okay, here you go. And if I had a local pharmacy, I'd do it. But, you know, we don't. So.
Right. And the thing is like, you know, I mean, Bezos kissed the Don's hand. So, I mean, that's the way I see it. He's just getting ready for to go along with their Trump plan. So
yeah, it may well be birth. It may well be true. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah, none of us have privacy anymore. I mean, this is just like the forefront, the tip of it, because I could just see this spreading. You know, insurance companies, again, all that sort of stuff. They're not going to take you to any kind of health issues or any.
I'm with you. I wrote a book about this, The Hidden History of Big Brother in America. Yeah. Sarah, thank you. Thanks for the information. I did not know. Donna in Alto, Michigan. Hey, Donna, what's on your mind today?
Hi, this is the childless cat lady.
Okay.
I still have my yard signs out. That's how I am just stubborn.
Yeah. Good.
Plus,
I said good.
I was wondering, you keep saying we're the Democrats as far as trying to stop Trump from doing what he's doing. And I'm thinking to myself, the first thing that always pops in my head is like, where were the voters? I mean, where were they? I know we are the majority. I know that. And if you don't know what Trump is doing and Elon, you have to, or what I really want to point out is the different characteristics from a Republican and a Democrat. And it's just so easy. And if you don't know which party represents what, you have to be living under a rock in a cave on Mars to not know that, you know?
I agree.
Plus, I have a nice slogan for the Democrats when the next election comes up: "Flip for blue."
Flip for blue.
I don't know. Flip for blue.
Okay. Yeah.
And I thought that would be excellent.
Yeah, let's flip America blue. I'm with you, Donna. Thank you very much. That was great. And thanks for watching Free Speech TV. We'll be right back. It's well, in a few seconds. It'll be 45 minutes past the hour. And I'll be back with your calls in just a moment. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's the True People's Media, the Thom Hartmann Program. Back with your calls in just a moment. Welcome back. Hank in Port Townsend, Washington. Hey, Hank, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, good afternoon, Tom. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I recently came across an article that confirms a committee action that was taken on January 29th from Senator Heidi Campbell of Tennessee. And they just passed a bill out of committee that felonizes elected officials if they vote against Trump's immigration policies. And I found that extremely disconcerting.
It's a felony to vote against Trump? Whoa. I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah.
Is this a state law or a federal law?
Federal. Senator Heidi Campbell. Looks like she's Tennessee's 4th congressional district.
Oh, so she's not a senator. She's a member of the House of Representatives.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So it's representative.
But anyway.
I was going to say I'd never heard of a senator.
A shout out to all the people who believe that their votes don't count.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And,
hopefully there will be a major blowback in, 22 months now, 21 months, something like that. I mean, it just can't pass fast enough for me. Hank, thanks for the call, and thanks for the heads up on that. I'll look it up. Joe in Oklahoma City. Hey, Joe, what's on your mind today?
Not much, Tom. I've got 3 for you, and they're real quick. The one thing people can do that we haven't talked about is if you have a problem with your payments, issues with your benefits, programs that are shut down, call your local news stations. That's what happened on the pushback for the grant cutting, because it's the one place the red meat people will come off Fox News to get their local weather and local sports, and then they get educated, which is pretty amazing.
That's a good point.
The other thing is you were talking about Luke, who's in the energy department now, right?
Yeah. I guess.
Okay, his name is Luke. Yeah, he's the guy. Luke's the one who's in the energy department doing the. Yeah, his last name is Fortier.
Okay.
He won $700,000 for using AI to decode X-rays of 2,000-year-old ancient Herculean scrolls.
Oh, I remember the news story on that. Yeah, I've seen that.
It was his team of like 3 or 4 people from his university that was able to get some of that coding information. So when we call them kids and teenagers, we're really underestimating how brilliant these people are and the damage they could do. They've probably got enough done right now they could blackmail the country.
Yeah. Well, if you don't think that they're putting back trap doors in these systems, I got a bridge to say.
Absolutely. I mean, and they're going to do blockchain. So trying to stop them is going to be almost impossible. The last one, I don't know if you caught Brad Schneider, congressman from Illinois, on C-SPAN this morning.
No, I didn't.
He was pushing that new Democratic coalition of centrists and moderates. You know, Blue Dogs, Third Way.
Yeah, people on the take from corporations, yeah.
These are the people who gave us Trump because they tried to bring the people incremental relief.
Yep.
FDR would have never won 4 terms bringing incremental relief to the people.
I absolutely agree. And it's one of the reasons why we're in trouble right now. Joe, thanks for the call. Spot on. Let's see. It's 11 minutes before the hour. I'll be back with you in just a second. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us.
I was tangled in the headlines, caught up in the noise. The weight of the world had stolen my joys. I grabbed my coat, left my phone behind. Told myself it's time to unwind. The city fades as the highway bends. The air turns clean where the pavement ends. Go find your mountain, your valley, your stream, where the air feels lighter and your soul can dream. When the world feels heavy, let it all fall away. There's peace in the wild where the trees softly sway.
Welcome back. 10 minutes before the hour. Picking up your calls here. Jim in Sharon, Wisconsin. Hey, Jim, what's up?
Hi, Tom. My wife, Jill, and I watch and listen to you fervently every day.
Well, thank you.
My question is, we have a moderate-sized non-for-profit animal sanctuary, and we have all our funds currently at the bank. And I'm wondering if we want to transfer all our funds to the local credit union.
Well, I think
my question.
Go ahead, finish.
Yes.
Sorry.
It's probably a good idea, but I'm just wondering what's to prevent them from going after funds in your credit union.
I don't think anybody is coming after our funds. I mean, you know, yes, Elon Musk now has all of our bank information if we get any direct deposit payments from the federal government, you know, like Social Security checks or things like that. But I don't think he's going to use it that way. I think that would be crazy. I think that would be counterproductive for him. There are certain limits that public opinion is going to put on him. Generally speaking, though, I think we all should be moving out of banks and into credit unions, because credit unions are just, you know, typically they're nonprofit. Once you make deposits there, once you become a depositor, even if it's just a checkbook account, you become a member of the credit union, and you can show up at their board meetings, you can vote, you can run for office, you know, you have a say in how it's run. And they typically offer better services at lower costs because there's no CEO making, $5 million a year at the top,
That's great.
So, yeah, I'm all in favor of credit unions. They have the same protections that banks do. It's a different agency, but it's still that $250,000 protection. So, but I wouldn't do it in a panic, Jim. I would just do it because it's the right thing to do.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure enough, Jim.
You have
good
a great
luck.
day.
Yeah, and good luck
Thank
on
you.
your animal rescue or that's just marvelous what you're doing. I salute you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank
Wouldn't
you.
want to do anything else.
I get it. I totally
Thank
get it. We have 4 cats and 2 dogs. I mean, we're kind of moving in that direction. Jim, thanks for the call. John in Seattle. Hey, John, what's on your mind today?
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for squeezing me in. I just wanted to follow up. I think Greg Palast was on a couple of weeks ago with you with Trump lost, voter suppression won. I haven't seen that picked up much by the corporate media.
No.
And I haven't seen the Democrats do much with it. Now, I recognize they're dealing with a blizzard of evil things from Voldemort, but when they're resisting, they can always say, "Oh, by the way, Trump is not really legitimate. He was elected on the basis of voter suppression and voter subversion."
Yeah. I'm not surprised that the mainstream media doesn't want to touch the story. I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised. And but it is starting to get around.
I've seen it on other places on YouTube, but
yeah. So just share it as far and wide as you can. Greg has now put it up over on his own website, gregpalast.com. It was on my website. It is on my website, hartmannreport.com, from about 2 weeks ago. It's the daily take from.
Right, I caught it there. Yeah.
2 weeks ago, Friday, and we also have a post on YouTube too. So, and post it everywhere you can. John, thanks for the call. John in Jacksonville, Florida. Hey, John, what's on your mind today?
Hi, this is John. Sometimes I'm known as Johnny C-Note, just for a little bit of information here. But I was watching on YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube, and I was watching one about why they want to take over Greenland.
Oh, it's very rich in minerals, and there's oil offshore apparently too.
Where the minerals are under the ice.
Well, a lot of them aren't because of global warming.
Oh, well, that's what I mean. But that means that the White House that wants to deny all this about global warming is actually aware of it and acting as if it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, it is happening.
Contradict themselves that way.
Yeah, it is happening. The icebergs or the ice sheet that covers Greenland is using millions of gallons a minute, actually.
Oh yeah. Plus, they're also hoping that it's going to open up the Northern Passage and eventually allow them to cross the North Pole.
That's why
submarine.
Yeah, that's where the kind of the great powers aspect of this comes in, and because as the North Pole opens up, and it's already largely open. I mean, we're starting to see shipping through that region. As that gets more and more open, then the northern coast of Greenland is going to become a major strategic choke for commerce around the world, and both the United States and Russia would like to control it. And well,
the other thing is when you have some of these representatives who have swallowed the Kool-Aid, no offense to people that drink Kool-Aid, and they are whenever they talk about global warming, as if it's a myth and doesn't happen.
Yeah, they're just
remind
wrong.
them.
John, thank you for the call. Sorry, I'm out of time. Hey, special thanks to Louise Hartman, Sean Taylor, Nate Atwell, Jamie Holly, Nigel Peacock, Sue Nethercutt, Patrick Hoyt, Geraldine Halbert, Ron Hartenbaum, Chase Spross, Nicholas Miller, Pat Sweeney, Jay LeBlanc, Jeremy Peterson, Connor Arroyo, Carne Verde, Martha Salinas, Mateo Robertson, Diane Russell, and Rubens Michael, and Mark Thoman. Let's remember Mark. All the people who work on this program, and get out there, get active, tag, you're it. Lot to do this weekend. So look for opportunities. I'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
In In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.